Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Chandler City Council. So we've got a few things that are going on tonight, and before we take the roll, let me just explain this evening. We have a consent agenda of which I've got a few people speaking on that, on the items related to that. We have a public hearing, so related to utilities, and I've got two people speaking on that. And then there is an action item voting on what is the public hearing. And then after that, we have a briefing, two briefings actually brought forth by Councilmember Harris. And then we have unscheduled public appearances. So several of you are here. I see the word library mentioned, and something else with our rangers. That's at the very end of the meeting. So just want to let you know up front of the flow of this particular meeting. So welcome. We love to see a full house. I think each of you have been checked, so you're not carrying any tomatoes, or police were kind of made sure of that. And you're always welcome to our city council meetings. With that, let's start this meeting. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mayor Hartke,
Present.
Vice Mayor Orlando,
Present.
Councilmember Encinas,
Here.
Councilmember Ellis,
Present.
Councilmember Stewart,
Here.
Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Poston.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, City Clerk. Our invocation tonight will be brought forth by Pastor Victor Hardy of the Congregational Church of the Valley, and our Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Encinas. Pastor.
Let us pray. We've come to praise you. Hallelujah. We've come to praise you. Hallelujah. We've come to praise you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Holy is the Lamb. Alleluia. We hold your name up high. Alleluia. We praise your holy name. Alleluia. We hold your name up high. Alleluia. Holy is your Lamb. Alleluia. Holy is the Lamb of God. Alleluia. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. To the other ministers in the audience that have or will be in the future, be giving the invocation. You don't have to do this. So in your tradition, lead us accordingly. All right. So council, we've got a number of speaker cards related to our consent items. So I'd like to call up these people. They're related to three particular items: item 5, item 8, and just those two, 5 and 8. We'll listen to them, and then I'll take a motion if there's any conversation you want to have related to consent. If not, we'll take a motion. If there's any recusals, at that time you can also let us know. So our first speaker card is brought forth by Robert Stye on item number 5. Mr. Stye, please come forward, give us your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Great, thank you. Robert Stye, 3120 South Dakota Place, Chandler, 85248. Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak on item 5 concerning the new development on the Chandler Farms, the apartment complex developed by Mill Creek Residential. First off, I do want to thank Mill Creek Residential and Brendan Ray for their outreach and engagement with the community that I live in, Hamilton Heights. They've listened to our concerns. They've made some concessions to the design based on our feedback. Both Hamilton Heights and Mill Creek Residential should be recognized for professionalism and engagement on a subject that isn't always very friendly or sometimes challenging. So thank you for that. Again, Robert Stye, I'm a resident of the subdivision of Hamilton Heights that's just west to the property that's being developed. I'm past president of the HOA and actually husband to the current president of the HOA. I volunteered on numerous committees for the city of Chandler, and I'm a professional engineer and vice president with a global engineering firm. I do a lot of development for high-tech facilities. So that experience, I think, allows me to discuss and proper the development on the buildings going up next to my neighborhood. Just as I did at the planning and zoning meeting in September, I strongly oppose this development based on the following. The density of the apartments is about 20% more dense than what you would normally see in a typical multifamily building. Average is about 18 to 20 units per acre. This site is 23 units per acre. The fact that the developer is going forth with great expense in construction of an underground parking garage shows that they need that density for the finances to work. And that's a negative impact on the surrounding community. There are about 10 homes on the east side of Hamilton Heights neighborhood, which will be significantly impacted by the development beyond just the construction activities that will take place. There are over 100 parking spaces along the west side of the development, which will create noise, light pollution, and other impacts. There's additional turn lanes on the east boundary of the property to northbound Arizona Avenue that we think increases the risk of incidents during high volume rush hour mornings and evenings. So this comes down to the question of just because we can build it doesn't mean we should, right? This area also already has 2 massive multifamily complexes with the Live Avienda and the Camden Chandler apartments. So the question is, does Chandler need more large apartment complexes? We don't want short-term market conditions driving decisions on facilities that will last more than 50 years. Collectively, we all have responsibility to drive smart, sustainable, and efficient growth within Chandler. This project, I feel, does not meet those criteria and is not appropriate for the size of the lot, and rezoning to multifamily, I don't feel is appropriate. So if not this, then what do we put there? I feel that a much lower density residential development would be appropriate and contribute to the solution of the need for additional housing. There's still opportunity to add some additional neighborhood retail and continue the connectivity path that's already established through the neighborhoods and connect this property.
Mr. Stye, can you please wrap up your
Yes,
time is ended.
I'll wrap up here. Ultimately, we have a decision to make tonight. The collective decision should be about smart, appropriate development of our limited resources. And again, just because we can, doesn't mean we should. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Vice Mayor.
Mr. Stye, I want to thank you for all the work you helped us with several, as you know, ordinances, and because of your expertise. I know we may disagree on this one, but I do know that you did work with the developer and they did come down with some of the height, some of the areas. Are you okay with the walkway? You know, that
Yeah, the walkway is fine. Actually, I use it almost every night. I think if we got rid of the walkway, my dog Simone would be quite upset. So
okay.
yeah, so I mean,
we-
the connectivity is celebrated, and I appreciate that. So the
all right,
walkway is fine.
we won't get rid of the walkway for the sake of harmony in the family, okay?
We need the walkway.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stye. Thanks for all your work too,
No,
and
thank
your
you.
wife's volunteering efforts as well. We certainly appreciate that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
the time.
Thank you. Our next speaker card, so I've got item 8, but I see written number 5. Tim Bell, Mr. Bell? You're on the cell tower, right?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, very good. Let me change this, and please state your name and address for
Sure.
the record, and you have up to 3 minutes, sir.
Tim Bell, address is 1833 East Riviera Drive, Chandler, Arizona 85249. And I do appreciate you, Mayor, meeting you this evening and also some of the council members and for your time. There's a lot of different issues I have with this cell tower proposal, many of them, but the main thing is health reasons. And I jotted a few things down. I did extensive research on cell towers. I do have a background in electricity. The dangers of electricity, but we're not going to go there because this is different. This is a cell tower. Basically, the EMFs, the RFs that are projected from this tower, they're the RFs. That's a nice word for radioactivity, dangers of radioactive properties. I'm in the 600-foot zone. I call it the danger zone. I don't feel that a cell tower should be in the center of Sunbird community for this very reason. I'm thinking of not only the current, but the future residents of Sunbird. I have grandkids. My brother-in-law and sister have grandkids that come down. Mine on occasion, theirs are pretty regular. I don't feel that it's going to be safe for them as well, being in this environment of radioactive properties. Basically, what I'm saying is and I only have 3 minutes, but due to extensive research, there's a lot of gray areas. I did have a chance to talk via email. I sent you, Mayor, and also some of the council members some of my concerns. I don't know if you had a chance to read them, but it is real. There's a topic of physicians internationally that have done studies and research on this, and it's just not a good thing, especially to have it in the middle of a subdivision. There's also information that was given to me by Benjamin and Cornelius that it is safe and it's FCC regulated. I understand that they're in the safe zones, but it's just, nothing against the Golf Association, but I do understand that they are getting kickbacks for this. They're getting a monetary monthly, money reimbursement for this cell tower, and I'm running out of time, but I don't think that should be done on the backs of our residents because maybe with their finances
Thank you, Mr.
in
Bell.
place. But thank you for the time. I appreciate you.
Mayor,
Councilmember Stewart.
thank you. Kelly, can you, some folks may not have been here on Monday, can you kind of go into what we can do and what we can't do as a council as it relates to federal law? I understand your concern. I remember when my kids were practicing soccer out at one of the local parks, and they had the big 280 kV lines over above, and you couldn't sit in a lawn chair that had metal on it because it would zap you. I don't know. I don't know if I got the radio in on my fillings or not, but it was certainly a buzzing experience that we experienced. So I don't know if these do this. I'm not an expert in 5G technology, but I think our city manager or our city attorney can share some information with you.
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Stewart, yes, as you know, cell phone towers, this area, small cell facilities, all of that, is an area that is highly regulated on the federal and state level, and the local level has been almost completely preempted in its regulation of these type of facilities. And as it relates specifically to the radio frequency radiation, it is something that the local government cannot even take into account when it's doing a review of a use permit such as this. We can take into account height and aesthetics. We cannot prohibit these type of facilities. We just control aesthetics, setback, height, that kind of stuff. But they have a right to be there. And as far as our regulation of the RF radiation, it is limited to requiring the provider certify that they comply with the federal standards.
Kelly, and if council voted no on placement of this cell tower, what would happen?
We would very likely be challenged as being in violation of federal and state law.
Lawsuit.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. The next speaker is Michael Reed. Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed, you have up to 3 minutes. Item number 8, state your name and address for the record, sir.
Michael Reed, 1909 East Glen Eagle Drive, Chandler, 85249. I want to speak in support of the cell phone tower. I spoke at the planning meeting last month, so I won't go over a lot of that, but I'm reminded every day of the need for this infrastructure. My address is all the way south in Chandler, and it had been good cell service until about 3 years ago, and with all the additional load with streaming and so on, it's just gotten worse and worse. I'm reminded every day. Yesterday I had 2 outgoing calls. One worked, one could not go through. This morning my sister called me and took 3 tries to make the connection, and it's just the way it is every day. We do Wi-Fi calling, piggybacking on a hardwired internet connection, but that's sketchy at best. So I just want to say it's much needed infrastructure as long as we're in compliance with FCC regulations. I feel it's needed, and those who do have cell phone service who live a little farther north, you know, they enjoy that because somebody else has a cell phone tower closer. So that's just all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
The next card is Helen Mortimer. Mortimer, you have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Helen Mortimer. Address is 6401 South Championship Drive, Chandler, Arizona 85249. And I thank you for letting me speak to you guys today. I'm a homeowner in Sunbird. My residence is situated within 300 feet of the proposed cell tower. I don't consider myself rich. My retirement savings are tied up in my home, which serves as my future nest egg, just as it does for many others in our community. While the cell tower may appear advantageous for the nearby golf course, its value to our broader community is questionable. It seems that the golf course and associates are primarily motivated by financial gain and are resorting to fear tactics. They claim that without the installation of the cell tower, our lives are at risk because we won't be able to call 911 from our cell service. Because of this, my husband and I conducted an extensive survey of phone coverage yesterday in Sunbird. And we went around and we were looking for dead zones within Sunbird community. And we found that north of halfway point in Sunbird, 5G was readily available. South of that, it was 4G, 3 bars at the best. At the south end gate, we had 5G substantial amount. We also noticed that while we were doing this, there was Cox communication things that were put within the community. And one of them was pinging a 5G enhancer and was giving us great cell service. So we're wondering if the Cox communication that are inputting the information in our community, if in fact they're going to be deployed at some point in time. And I implore the council to look into this with their planning department to see if those little towers that are out there have this technology in them. Because if that is the case, it will render this cell tower redundant very fast. Another concern of mine is the potential devaluation of my home, that being that I'm inside of the tower. When I went to several appraisers, I asked them to do an appraisal on my home. They did tell me that my house would be devalued because of the cell tower, but none of them would give me an appraisal because they were very frightened of the repercussions legally. Lastly, the golf course feels that they are embracing a lucrative opportunity, but after reading what they are bringing in is much more to the contrary. Their contract with the cell tower, Atlas, is $1 million for 35 years. They're selling out our community for $1 million over 35 years. In today's time, it's not that much. 10 years ago, it would have been quite a bit. It's not a modest return. I find it challenging to comprehend how the golf course can stay viably financially lucrative. Lastly, if you agree to this, you will be setting a precedence for your city of putting a cell tower in a residential community, which I think you should probably think twice about that. This will set the precedence for the future and the future and the future. My time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, I've got one more speaker card and then a couple comment cards. Councilmember Ellis.
I had a question concerning the fact that they were not willing to give you an appraisal for this. I currently live in a place where I have a tower not too far from me, and I was able to obtain that. And I just refinanced my place. So I don't know who you have worked with. I just wanted to make that very clear. And we do have those towers that are really currently near other people's houses, and those people are getting their appraisals done, including myself at this time. So just wanted to make the point there. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker card is Gary Sattler. Mr. Sattler, please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 3 minutes, sir.
My name is Gary Sattler. I live at 1924 East Glen Eagle Drive. I live in Sunbird Golf Resort. My contention regarding this proposal is that Sunbird is a community comprised of 50% of its residents do not live there during the year, during the summertime and into the fall, and 50% of the residents live there year round. By having this vote at this time, 50% of the residents are not being represented here. Their voice is not part of this meeting. I don't know whether that's planned purposefully, but the timing of it is rotten, to be frank with you. The other thing that is interesting too, there was an original sighting, just from an appearance. There was an original sighting of the cell tower in another part of the community that was near homes that are much more valuable. The cell tower now has been moved to homes that are less valuable, less amounts of people. Now, I don't know whether there's any connection to that, but the appearance of it looks to me like those that have the power got it moved. Those that are powerless have no voice. That's all my observations about this thing. I am not totally against the golf course looking for ways to earn money so that they can be viable, and a cell tower may be one of them. But I don't think when you see cell towers as a rule being placed in a community, and in response to Christine Ellis's comment, which I think was an honest comment, the only way you could tell, Christine, is that if you got that appraisal on your house, the same very house, not next to a cell tower. That's the difference. You can't tell me that once you have cell towers next to homes, and most of the community that these are being put around are single people, older people, underrepresented people. That's all I'm saying. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I've got 3 comment cards. I will read them. Debbie Stadler, probably related to that guy, I'm guessing. Yeah, she's nodding yes. Says, I don't feel it should be in a community. Okay, Gary Stadler, you filled out. Okay, I'm not going to read your comment card since you spoke. And Maureen Moore, apologize for if I'm butchering your name. Hopefully, City Council will look into the future direction of the city of Chandler regarding where cell towers are allowed to be erected. Okay, and she's opposed.
Mayor.
Let me start over here. Council member.
Yeah, thank you so much. Kelly, I know that by approving this, it saves the city a lawsuit. By not approving this, we go into a lawsuit and we go into litigation. What's the cost for something like that for us to litigate, even though it's a federal law that kind of, because the federal law kind of supersedes what we're even able to do because it's in a federal law perspective. But if we said, hey, you know what, go forth with the lawsuit, we want to see how that turns out. How much does the taxpayers have to pay to defend something like this that we know is in federal law?
If I may, Mayor, Councilmember Harris, that is very impossible to predict. Could be significant, and N- We're talking a lot of hypotheticals, so I'm uncomfortable giving any real numbers, but it could be a significant hit.
So basically, we'll be kind of fighting up an uphill battle without a winning hand in a sense.
Clearly, we'd do our best.
And then I guess my last question is if we did, how can we, number one, it sounds like it's kind of a federal issue because I know we hear about cell phone towers all the time. How can we empower our residents to learn more about how it can be advocated on the federal level? And then also, how can we make sure that this particular community that they are following, if they're going to put it up, they're making sure that the radiation is checked and making sure that our residents, that this company that puts it up is in compliance, and making sure that we're double checking, following up to make sure they are 100% compliant.
Again, if I may, Mayor, Councilmember Harris, obviously any changes to federal laws goes through Congress. So reaching out to your Congress representative would be a way for individuals to address potential legal changes to federal law. And our staff my understanding is our staff does get those certifications as part of the process, the use permit process.
So basically, whomever, once the approval happens, there has to there's a person or supervisors or people that overlook to make sure that they're testing and making sure that it's compliant within the federal regulations within the FCC.
If I may again, Mayor, Councilmember Harris, the testing is not done by the city. Our limitation is we can ask for certification that the frequencies are below or meet the federal requirements.
Okay, and my last question is that if this goes up and the frequency testing, could the neighbors perhaps see that testing? Can we perhaps, is there a way they can get a copy to see that that testing was done, who certified it, to make sure that if that does, if we vote a certain way, that they can have a copy of that information? Is that something that we can, is that something that's public that can be given out like that?
Mayor, Councilmember Harris, zoning files are public records and available for public review and to get copies.
Then is it possible that the city, if that does happen, is it possible that the city can have that provided at the clerk's office if if residents wants to pick it up to double check and make sure that the certification was done properly and make sure the companies were certified and things of that nature?
We'll definitely look into that possibility. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So any other comments
Thank
on
you.
my left? Am I right?
Yeah, I like the applicant here. I'll have some questions for the applicant.
A lot of people.
State your name. Okay.
Mayor, council, mayor, and council members, I appreciate the time to come before you. My name is Michael Powers. I work for Atlas Tower One LLC, which is located at 3002 Bluff Street in Boulder, Colorado. Our mobile network partner for this project is Verizon, and we did have some Verizon representatives, several in fact, that came for the Planning Commission, but I don't believe they returned for this hearing. But I'm definitely available to answer questions.
So, yeah, a couple of things. When I was at your neighborhood meeting there, I had asked that we have a map of the cellular. Did you able to provide that?
Yes, absolutely.
And you prepared to show that tonight?
I believe all of that was integrated into the staff report that was shown at the Planning Commission.
Yeah, it very well may be, but I also asked for, okay, I'm gonna look at the coverage map here, but I also want the residents to know what's going on as well. So can we get this up on the chart, somebody?
Thank you for your assistance. I appreciate that. He's going to be faster than me, so thank you. Should I sit down or?
No.
Okay.
No. While he's getting that up, so there was a concern raised by one of the residents about this was originally sourced in another area of the community. What was the reasons to change it?
So the siting of these locations are driven by originally by engineered uh, evaluation of the carrier's coverage in the area. Typically that, and in this case, it did produce what's called a search ring. It's a circle on a map where if we can get equipment to fix the problem within the circle on the map, we would be able to move forward and and fix the problem. Essentially, this site, like every other, not many sites that I've worked on, followed the same procedure. Within the ring, we did a comprehensive review of all of the parcels that physically fit within the ring. We then did research on, our team did research on zoning and so on to see what is allowed in this particular area pursuant to zoning code. And many parcels were obviously tossed out. We resident sites that were too small, sites that um, wouldn't meet setbacks or basically comply with the most or all of the code here in Chandler. From that point, we sent out essentially letters to landowners trying to engage folks in a dialogue about potentially uh, essentially hosting the site by way of a commercial lease. Um, as you can imagine, as we go through this process, the number of possible spots gets smaller and smaller. As we went through this process on this particular ring, there was only one option, which was the option that you're, you know, talking about tonight on this hearing.
Okay, so when, let me clarify, you were not looking at multiple options on the golf course. You were just looking at this one site. The multiple options were outside of the golf course?
Uh, I, I'm not, I don't run the leasing team, and I'm an attorney. So, but I do know the leasing team has the same procedure for every site. They would have sent a letter to every parcel inside of the search ring that they thought could potentially legally house pursuant to the zoning code this type of infrastructure.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt that like if there were multiple parcels owned by the golf course, for instance, the same letter would have gone out to all of those parcels. Um, the other part of this process also is this site is a Verizon site. So while our company is doing this work, which is generally the zoning and approval, government approval process, the engineers are looking at the viable sites as well. And they have a strong voice in where to go to fix the problem. So there's a bunch of different factors
Yeah,
that
I
got
guess,
us to this location.
so sir, all I'm asking you very simply
Yes, sir.
is, were there other sites considered at the golf course? And were they moved because of whatever reasons?
On the golf course, no, not to my knowledge, but this has been about 2 or 3 years in the making, so I can't testify um, to everything that our staff did, you know, coming up to this point where
Okay.
where we submitted an application on a specific parcel for a specific location.
Appreciate it. So, sir, do you have the expertise to tell us the map that was originally up on the board here? Do you have the expertise to tell us what exactly coverage this area is? And how does that interface with existing coverage?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question? Because I want to make sure I answer your
That's
question
okay.
correctly.
Um, One of the questions brought up
Yep.
was that there was existing uh, cell or phone capability in this area. When I was at the neighborhood meeting, I heard very loud and clear that there was a lack of other cell towers in the area that cover this. Yet I'm hearing tonight that there is other carriers there. Is that taking effect with this map you're showing on the screen here?
No, there aren't. That doesn't exist.
So the
By
Cox,
our research and our understanding of the infrastructure in the area, which is confirmed on a different set of documents sent to planning, is that the nearest co-locatable structure that could fix the problem in this area was well out of the search ring and about a mile to the north, I believe.
Okay.
So I don't know what other information folks in the neighborhood are getting, um, but as to this specific project, I believe that information is incorrect.
Okay.
And also, just as a point of of fact for the hearing, um, the coverage from other carriers doesn't necessarily uh, become an element for denial, because each operator, mobile network operator within this space has a right to deliver to their customer pursuant to the FCC regulations. And so we are working directly with Verizon, but I know this site really well. And I know that AT&T, T-Mobile, probably Dish Network as well would be interested, because there is a huge gap in service here.
Yeah. And I'm not advocating that or deny this for any of those reasons. That was a good lawyer question, by the way.
Sorry.
I like how you slugged that in there.
I don't
man.
want to.
As an attorney, I want to make sure you understand.
Yeah.
I'm teasing you, sir. Don't mistake that for that. Okay, so I understand. Do you have any other plans? I know this pole could handle multiple carriers. You have one right now. Can this handle more than one?
It is designed for co-location, although the 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 ability to co-locate multiple structures on a tower or a structure of this height is probably going to be limited to two. It kind of depends on how flexible the carriers are in terms of bringing in smaller equipment to make sure it fits, then it doesn't destroy the architectural stealthing component that we're striving for.
Okay. I got a question for staff, Mayor, and then I'll move on. I got you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening.
So the permit on this, is it for a long term or just a year or come back again or what? How's this work?
So through the mayor, council member Orlando, or Vice Mayor Orlando, the request, it is for it's not temporary, it's for a permanent basis.
So just be permit for forever, as
Correct.
long as the structure's there or the case may be, right?
Correct.
All right. And then, is there any plans that you know of, since you do this daily, I guess is there any plans you know of that there's gonna be other structures built in this area right now?
Through the mayor, Vice Mayor Orlando, I'm not aware of any other proposed cell tower in the surrounding location as of right now.
Okay, so in the app, I mean, we've received a lot of emails on this. And my major concern is when I see, and I understand I met with Ms. Mortimer and the group there, and I extended these meetings. But the one thing that concerns me the most is when I read emails, and I know council up here, that says this is a matter of life or death. And that was very apparent to at least a dozen of those emails where there was an incident and they couldn't get 911. Now, I'm not saying this would cure that, but I'm assuming it would help that if this was approved.
Through the mayor, Vice Mayor Orlando, I believe that's something best for the applicant to address.
I'll ask him, but that's okay. One last question for you. Trees.
Yes.
I know that was a stipulation by the P&Z. What does that mean? More trees?
Yes, so there was a stipulation added by Planning and Zoning Commission. It's stipulation number 5. It is for the applicant to work with staff to provide more trees around the proposed facility. Specifically, they're going to add 3 more pine trees, since pine trees are what is existing around the facility currently. They're going to be put in certain spots where they help screen the actual cell tower more from public view.
What size trees? Are we going to do 25-gallon trees? Are we going to take 25 years to grow? Or are these going to be larger trees that are actually going to shield it today?
Yeah. So through the mayor, Vice Mayor Orlando, they will be 36-inch box trees. So that size, they are at about, they can be from 11 to 13 feet in height at time of planting.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And I'll ask the applicant to come back up, Mayor, indulge me. That's why I no action. But go ahead. So we did get a lot of emails.
Yes,
A
sir.
lot of folks are concerned about their lives. There was some real world issues that we're facing. I know you can't, you're a lawyer, and I know you can't guarantee anything. I know you're going to say that up front. I'll save that time for you. But do you think in your mind and the way this rolls out, is that going to help the self-help coverage?
Uh, Absolutely. What we're doing when we bring in a more robust component to a network, we not only provide phone call access for 911 calls, which at this point in time is nationally ranging from 70 to 95% of all 911 calls coming from a mobile phone. But we're also really upgrading what your emergency services uh, personnel can do, both for fire, police, ambulance, and so on. Um, uh, a specific example would be, I'm sure your police and first responder folks are now driving in vehicles with laptops. And it's common practice when approaching either a call for a domestic disturbance or a fire or some other incident where life and limb and time might matter. And typically, if they're able to put that information into the laptop that's in the vehicle that's moving to the space, that actually makes it safer generally because they have more information about what they're about to walk into, and it also makes it a lot easier to rally additional support, whether it's a fire or gas leak or heart attack. So this is really important to us, to the community. It's definitely an upgrade.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you taking your time.
Will I have a moment to correct or add information to some of the comments that were made? Is there going to be an appropriate time to do that?
I'm
Okay, thank you.
okay.
So
Sure.
I just wanted to ask.
I guess, council, do you want that information? Is anyone asking for that?
At this time, I would like to hear it, Mayor, but just
Okay.
because the fact that we have heard from
Thank
our
you.
attorney,
Please.
so we want to hear.
I think I'll go in chronological order, and I'll try to be super fast. One thing I want to say is that we as citizens and you as the government representatives, we can talk about anything. Obviously, there's no prohibition about talking about health as it relates to RF. But I just want to point out that your city attorney did a good job of concisely stating how federal preemption essentially makes the regulation of this industry federal and not state or local. One analogy I like to throw out there is this body cannot regulate something like Advil or Tylenol. If you thought that the, the manufacture, distribution, and sale here in Chandler of Tylenol was a problem, this wouldn't be the proper body for it. That would be the Food and Drug Administration, which is a federal administration. That's just an analogy. Secondly, Councilmember Harris had a question about what would this look like if we went into litigation. Here's my take on it. If this body takes into consideration statements about whether or not legal, lawful, in compliance technology in Chandler is harmful to human health, there wouldn't be a big lawsuit. What would happen is, most likely, in my opinion, would be that the decision that this body made would be an error, and we'd probably have another hearing all over again, because that would be rightfully discluded from the consideration. So, but we're not in the business of lawsuits. That's not what we do. Quite frankly, we're not interested in that. We're trying to bring infrastructure into your community for the better benefit of the community. And then that dovetails into the next comment. I'm forgetting who said what, but actually, it was still Councilmember Harris. You asked about how the community can get more information. The FCC has an awesome, really, really robust a website that doesn't just promulgate their thoughts and their actions. It gives you links to other organizations that are at least demonstrably not crackpot sort of ideas or regulations that don't match our regulation in the US. And so I strongly encourage everyone to go first to the FCC to start your research about learning more about how this technology is safe in the U.S. and how that is exactly regulated. Oh, and the last comment was that I wanted to correct was an allegation that there was $1 million price on this. I'll tell you straight up what the economics of these sites look like. Generally speaking, in the U.S., in a very rural area like Miami, Wyoming, you might see a ground lease that's $500 to $600 a month for a term of 30 to 50 years. In a more dense residential or city environment, those numbers might go up to $1,500 or $1,800 a month. Ground leases above 2,000 are unicorns. They don't happen very often, and I'll tell you right now that this site's no unicorn. The payback on these sites, and I'm talking about the delta from what Verizon or T-Mobile is going to pay to the owner of the tower, less the ground lease, less the maintenance, taxes, and insurance. That delta usually pulls about a 13 to 15 year recoup of capital. That's not $1 million, not for a long time. The way this works is we are in the long game with this industry. I've been doing this since 2007. We build structures in all sorts of places, and it's kind of like a hotel model. The cash flow is pretty thin, but we've done a number of them over time, and that's how the business is run. But there aren't any $1 million payments happening, and there's absolutely no sort of under the table or hidden payments. It doesn't exist. That's all I had. Thank you.
Council, any additional questions?
Mayor.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And I know you didn't maybe mean it this way, but like concerns from the neighbors about health is not, those aren't crackpot comments. Those are important for these folks that say that. So I understand what you're saying.
May I just?
Yes, sir.
Please don't think I didn't say that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is there is a lot of garbage information on the internet. That was what I was trying to say.
Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying.
I did not direct that to anyone in this room.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So as it relates to the FCC, and we all know it's kind of a revolving door for people that have worked in telecom, and then they sit on the unelected body, you know, that basically is tying our hands as a city to be able to do what we think is right for our community. I'm not saying this isn't right, because what Vice Mayor Orlando said is very true. We need to have 911 responsiveness, and we need to have access for people that are doing business in that community. You know, and that kind of leads me, that's kind of that macro thing. So I'm not really that enamored by the FCC rules that they impose from an unelected body. But when we talk about the location, like one of these homes is 300 feet away, is what I heard. And so why can't we find a place somewhere in the middle? I know you said you looked at them all, and with the data that I've got on the agenda here, I can't really ascertain what was a good spot and what was a bad spot. Or, you know, like for me, it's just common sense, like just put it in the middle, right?
Sure.
Get it away from the houses, and then I think we're all happy. Why didn't we do that?
Because that's not the way the network works anymore.
Okay.
So a short analogy would be 30 years ago when I first started in this industry, you went to the town, you found the big hill that was in the town, you put a tower on top of the town, and you turn it on, you're done. And how that would work was they would generate a lot of wattage from that far high place, which would trickle down into the community. That's so antiquated. We're now in a place where people have really low powered devices, and thousands of them, like 2.3 on average in America or something per person. It's something insane. These devices work on very low voltages. They can deal with a very weak signal. The goal of a modern wireless network is to have multiple antennas spread out evenly throughout the community so that they're not blasting a high wattage. And in fact, the FCC rules for siting antennas and also turning them on and operating them depend differently how high it's from the ground it is, how close it is to other humans, and so on. It's not just every cell tower is the same. You might see antennas under a soffit of a commercial building. Those are really low wattage because it's right there. It's right, it's 10 feet off the ground.
What's this one? Is this low wattage?
All I am not a scientist. I'm not an electrical engineer, but I can tell you this, that our partner, which is Verizon, has a license, many licenses, to use this technology to meet their customers' needs. They have a requirement to both buy certified equipment that meets the technical specifications for the FCC, and they also have an obligation for their engineers to make sure that when it's placed on the top of a 300-foot tower, that they can do one thing with the wattage and the positioning, and it's different in a different location. And they do comply with those rules. And in fact, if you want to go through trade journals like Inside Tower or AGL magazine, which tracks and it's like the telecom news, people do get occasionally they get fined for not following FCC rules if they're not.
Okay.
It's pretty unusual, but there is a regulatory body that watches this.
I appreciate that. And I tell you what, if this lawyer thing doesn't work out for you, you can help the guys that didn't show up for this meeting with your explanation. That's for sure.
I don't want to be a lawyer tonight.
I'll tell you what,
I
no,
appreciate that.
and I appreciate that. And I guess all we're just trying to figure out is like, what's the best thing for the neighbors, right? At the end of the day, some neighbors feel like it's great because they're going to get better coverage, but the neighbors that live close feel like it needs to be somewhere else. And you're telling me, and I guess your colleagues would tell us, this is it. This is the only place to go, even though we had an option for it to be somewhere later. And then the final question I've got for you, timing. Just tell me why it's today and not in December when everybody's back.
Oh,
one of my neighbors
timing's a
brought that up.
total coincidence. We have no
Okay.
control over it.
Okay.
None at all. We've been working on this for like 3 years.
All right, super.
So we just finally managed to get all of the documents to move forward and had the engineers certify that they wanted the location and so on.
Yeah.
So there's no magic to that.
We got a big agenda.
And by the way, we
Yeah.
had over 100, I think, participants in the neighborhood meeting, and about 70% were in favor of it. I know that every time you have a meeting with the community, you get a different section of cross-section of opinions, but
Thank you.
most were in favor. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Council, I know I've personally responded to over 100 folks on this that have been overwhelmingly in favor. I appreciate the hospitality at Sun Lakes and the conversations that you hosted, Councilmember Encinas, Vice Mayor, and myself. And I also want to, what's that? Sunbird, thank you. I also want to thank those of you who came out to the Planning and Zoning meeting. I know I talked with many of you there, and but we're now at the point of council. If you're no other questions related to this, are there any recusals for the consent agenda tonight? Vice Mayor.
I have a recusal on the permit for Good Time Charlie, and I can't remember what number that was. Please note that.
I believe it's item 9.
Okay, item 9. I have recusal for item 9 there.
Great. Any other recusals, related comments? Seeing none, a motion would be in order. Motion to accept the consent agenda.
Bear with me, Mayor. Mayor.
I see Councilmember, no, I thought Councilmember Poston was.
She's trying to do the motion.
Okay.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to get to the right.
All right. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I'll move to approve the consent agenda of the October 19, 2023 regular meeting, items 1 through 47.
A second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilmember Encinas. Please vote, Council.
Mayor, I'll be Mayor, City. Yeah,
Go, I'm sorry. Go
City
ahead.
Clerk, I'll be a no on number 8.
Okay.
Motion carries unanimously with the exception of item 8, which passes by majority, and item 9, which passes 6-0.
All right. Thank you. And Council, by the way, if any of you want to bring an item from consent to action, it's just mention that. Every council member has the power to move a consent item to action. So if that is your wish at the beginning of these, just say so, and that we can proceed with those. Next on our agenda, well, with that, let's move into our public hearing. We have a utility fees hearing. Thank you all for joining us tonight. You're not staying for the good stuff. Go Diamondbacks. I think they're playing tonight. Oh, they won. Sorry. All right. Wait another minute, Matt. Let people leave the room. As part of our public hearing, which I'd like to now call us in, make it official. We have a staff presentation by Matt Dunbar. Mr. Dunbar.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. And actually, our PowerPoint isn't, the slideshow itself isn't starting, it doesn't look like. Looks like it's still on, not on presentation mode. Okay, it is. Just doesn't show up that way on here. All right. Very good. Well, I thought, to mix it up, I'll pull a Pastor Hardy and maybe I'll sing my way through this. But I don't know that that would go over so well. He does an excellent job, and I don't know that I would. So we'll just kind of walk through some of the slides with you tonight as we talk about utility rates and have this public hearing. One thing I want to point out on this first slide, that visit the chandleraz.gov/proposed utility rates has a plethora of information on these rates. It has our cost of service study that we completed in 2001. It has a calculator which you can add in your actual water usage and see what the effect will be for you personally, and a lot of information, including presentations that have been presented throughout the way. On the agenda tonight, we want to talk about a few things. First off, the utility rate change outreach that we've done. We're going to talk about the rate analysis and the cost of service process, the utility revenue requirements, major utility rate cost drivers, some rate change overviews on all of our utilities, water, wastewater, reclaimed, and solid waste. Just important to note that those are the utilities that Chandler has. Not changing. See? Maybe there's a separate PowerPoint.
Matt needs Matt. Matt.
Because in this, it doesn't show like it's on presentation mode. Let's try this. I don't know if there's a PDF. Or what? It's PowerPoint. Should be going. It's not advancing for you? It's not advancing. It doesn't look like it's a presentation. Odd. I don't know if it's closed. We could try to do that. Which one's it over here? Yeah.
Uh-oh, they're coming in from the back room.
Try presentation. Did you guys close out? There it goes. When in doubt, reboot. Life lessons from IT. All right, so there's our agenda. Hopefully now you can see that on your screen and we're advancing through. Looks like we are. Okay, great. We'll talk about the rate change overviews for water, wastewater, reclaimed, and solid waste. Those are the utilities that Chandler is over. We do not do electrical or gas utilities here in the city of Chandler. We'll look at utility rate comparisons, not only for a comparison of what an average user used compared to what they currently pay and what they will pay, but also to other Valley cities. And then talk about the proposed ordinance and resolution and how those two are combined make up the changes that we're requesting this evening. From a public outreach perspective, the process that we've gone through is lengthy. We finished our cost of service in 2021, and that we planned a 5-year implementation of cost of service alignment. But specifically for these rate increases, we began this process in July with our public outreach. We've had our website with all of that information available since July. We've had several meetings. We've met with not only residents, we had a residential, non-residential public meeting that was in person or virtual. We've met with the Chandler Chamber, and they were gracious enough to host us at a public policy meeting where we were able to share information. We've met with individual stakeholders as needed, and we've had on our website the opportunity for residents to submit feedback as well, with a feedback button that goes directly to our email so we can track that information. We also had information that was communicated in the city scope, utility bill messages, social media posts, and media releases. So first off, on the utility rate cost of service process, just a quick reminder, this is the second step of 3 towards cost of service alignment. And we'll talk about what that means in just a second. But there's really 2 components. The first is the city's financial plan review, and the second is a cost of service analysis. The financial plan review is an annual process that we do each year, and the cost of service analysis is completed every few years, every 5 to 7 years is what's currently being recommended. Just as a reminder for these utility services, these are enterprise funds, and enterprise funds are designed to be self-supporting, much like a business. Keeping enterprise funds separate helps show that the funds are stable and therefore less risky for debt holders, in turn reducing the rates we pay on our bonded debt, which saves the ratepayers money by lowering the debt costs. The same holds true for keeping the funds structurally balanced, meaning ongoing revenues are sufficient to pay for ongoing expenses, and one-time funds like fund balance are used to pay for one-time expenditures like our capital improvements. The 10-year financial analysis we do each year looks at the myriad components which make up a revenue requirement projection, and only what is required to keep the utility self-sufficient over the 10-year plan is what is recommended for a rate change. This annual review, consistent willingness of council to keep the utilities structurally balanced through appropriate rate adjustments, and following industry best practices and internal financial policies have helped keep costs low over the years and allow Chandler to, as you will soon see, provide a very high quality of service for the lowest costs in the valley. In addition to the annual review, we also complete a cost of service study or analysis every few years to ensure that each customer class is paying their fair share of the costs associated with delivering the services to them. This concept of equity across these service levels is an industry best practice, and Chandler has chosen to comply with it in an effort of ensuring fairness in our rates. One additional component of equity that should be discussed is that by systematically ensuring utility rates are adjusted to meet the operating and capital needs of the utility, in essence, we are ensuring that those who benefit from a high quality system now are also paying their share of ensuring the same quality system exists for the future residents of Chandler, instead of shifting the entire burden of maintenance down the road. Once we do that financial analysis, we determine what revenue requirement is needed, and these are the revenue requirements in green for the current fiscal year 2023 to 24, which are proposed to be effective January of 2024. A 7% increase for water, 8% for wastewater, 7% for reclaimed, and 7% for solid waste. However, these rates are not an across-the-board adjustment. Because of the cost of service analysis that we've done, the rates will be distributed across those classifications differently, depending on who is currently paying perhaps more for their share of the cost than others. From a revenue requirement perspective, these are the ongoing rate increases needed to meet current and future operating and capital costs. And these rate changes bring in additional ongoing revenue required to not only fund operating costs, but also the debt service costs of current or future capital improvements. In essence, rate adjustments are not only just a one-time funding plug, they are a sustainable way to fund the utilities requirements. And the benefit to this is that while a one-time funding of ongoing costs may fill the gap for a year or two, it only makes the next rate change more critical and passes the burden of a true rate requirement on to future users while minimizing the equity of shared responsibility with existing users. Additionally, we do want to point out that the operating increases that need funded are from a variety of impacts to the expenses of the operations, chemicals, utilities, debt service, not just from a single line, for example, uncollectible debt. We have always had and continue to have a very low cost of bad debt, which is an expense all businesses that sell a commodity have. Our 3-year average bad debt for the city of Chandler is 0.2% of total revenues. So in essence, 99.8% of all bills are paid to us, and even a portion of the 0.2% is collected by an outside collection agency on our behalf.
Hey, Matt, can you elaborate on that? What is 0.2%? And when we have an outside agency come, what do they usually recoup for us?
It depends on the length of time that outstanding bill has been in the collection process and our internal collection process. So 0.2% are total revenues. And I didn't write them down on my paper. I think Don has those. Okay, she's looking that up. I think the total revenues, when we get those, are about $180-ish million a year. So 0.2% of that is around 300,000-ish. So we'll get the actual numbers here in a second, but that's
Thank
the
you.
uncollectible portion.
And actually, I just realized I should let you continue the hearing before we comment, so excuse me.
That's all right. All right, so what are some of the major cost drivers for our utilities? Number one is aging infrastructure, and that's along the top. Just as a reminder, from a water perspective, we have a total of 1,238 miles of pipe in the ground. Our 10-year capital improvement program has $81.6 million worth of improvements to that infrastructure, and that reflects about 1 to 2 miles of replacements per year, but we are anticipating increasing the number of lane miles of pipe that are replaced as that infrastructure ages. On the water side, we do proactive replacements based on risk, so we don't know the actual how good the pipes are holding up in the ground until we go in, dig them up, and replace them. But we cannot access the system like we can on the wastewater side, so we do more proactive replacements. There is also increasing regulation, which drives costs higher on the water and wastewater side, and then inflation impacts on capital and operations. So not only are we seeing inflation affect the capital improvements that we're making, we're seeing it on the operations side as well for chemicals and utilities. On the wastewater side, a very similar story. Again, pipes and valves within the city, 947 miles. Our 10-year capital plan includes $131.8 million worth of improvements to that infrastructure and reflects significant individual projects. For example, our 66-inch sewer main line. These are reactive replacements based on an analysis and video inspections done of that. We do have additional increasing regulation for water effluent quality as well, and inflation is impacting wastewater as well as water. So what does this mean for rates? On the water side, our revenue requirement through our analysis that we need on the utility is 7%, but because of cost of service, we'll be attributing that to the different classifications in their unique cost profile. So residential, multifamily, non-residential, industrial, and landscape will all see a different percentage, not a 7% across the board. Again, that allows for the classifications, some classifications that have been subsidizing other classifications to be realigned. So as you see on the, this chart is a little busy, but there's a lot of information on here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, probably not. But on the left-hand side of this, you see it for a single family resident, we have existing conservation tiers and what the percentage increase is going up in each of those tiers. This evaluation was done during our cost of service analysis of how to allocate the costs to these different tiers as well as the different customer classifications. On the multifamily side, we also have existing conservation tiers. And then as you head over to the left-hand side, you'll see our non-residential, landscape, and industrial customers and the different rate increases for each of those classifications. So everything from kind of a blended rate on the single family side of around 2.5% to a 14% increase on the landscape side for those customers. Then we also have, as part of each utility bill, a base charge, and the base charges on average are going up about 5%, depending on the meter size, anywhere from 4.99 or 97% to 5.11%, again allocated based on the cost of service analysis that was done. Well, with all that information, what does that actually mean? So here's kind of the drum roll. So we looked at an average bill for a resident of the city of Chandler, multifamily average bill, a non-residential average bill, and a landscape average bill. And this slide represents what that change will be. So from a water perspective, the current water cost for an average bill is going from $29.68 to $30.62, or a 94-cent a month increase. For multifamily, the monthly increase is $37.84 per month, which is about $3 per unit per year. For non-residential, it's going up $37.50. And for landscape, approximately $76.68. And if you'll recall, they had the highest, they had been being subsidized prior to the cost of service analysis, so they have the highest percentage increase of those rate increases. As a reminder, water conservation matters when it comes to utility bills. Of course, we have those tiered rates, which encourage conservation. Low water users pay less per gallon for the water they use, and high water users pay more. We also offer, for homes built prior to 1992, a free WaterWise workshop, site visit of the homes, and retrofit kits that can help them become more water sufficient. We also have current and new conservation rebate programs, as have recently come through Mayor and Council. You've approved additional grant funding available this year to increase those incentives, to remove residential and commercial grass, remove non-functional turf, add smart irrigation controllers. All of those things will add to the ability for residents and businesses to reduce their water consumption. On the wastewater side, when we look at wastewater rates, again, the revenue component of this, the revenue requirement, is 8%, split between residential, multifamily, and non-residential. Again, that cost burden between them, the cost of service realigns them. And what we saw here is that residential has been subsidizing other business classifications over the years. So instead of an 8% increase on the residential side, we see here that residential will remain flat. They'll have a 0% increase on wastewater. Multifamily has about a 22% increase, and non-residential has an average of 17.2% increase, depending on if you're looking at the volumetric or the customer base charge. And these charges reflect an overall 8% increase for this utility. So what does that mean for an average bill? Well, if residential is going up 0%, that means that it remains flat. $27.65 will be the remaining, or will be the fee that residents pay. Multifamily for 150 unit will go up about $400 or $350, and non-residential will also go up about $130 per month. For our reclaimed water rates, we only have one customer classification, so there's no cost of service realignment that has to happen with these bills. They have a 7% cost need or revenue requirement, and so the bills will go up 7%. So the average monthly bill for a reclaimed water is 850,000 gallons. The current bill of $637.50 will go up to $680. For our solid waste rates, again, we only have one classification. The utility has only one customer type of residential, as we do not provide commercial or multifamily services for solid waste removal. This 7% increase is a $1.30 increase to those to our solid waste bill. This next slide talks about what some of those some policy changes as well that are part of the discussion tonight. We have not only an ordinance, but we have a resolution, and both of those would change some of the solid waste policies that we enacted as part of the cost of service. The cost of service really looks at it from an equity lens to say who is paying for the services that they utilize. And some of the changes that we made were related to our recycling center collection, or recycling solid waste collection center, where you can drive in and drop off waste for no cost, and our bulk collections. We made those changes to allow 2 of each during a calendar year, so they could have 2 free visits to the RSWCC of 400 pounds or less, and 2 free bulk pickups during a given year. After receiving feedback from customers and evaluating that through the direction Mayor and Council gave us, we are proposing some changes to that to offer 4 of either or during the next calendar year. So if you rely more heavily on the RSWCC, you can go up to 4 times for no cost. If you rely more on the bulk pickup side, you can have at least 4 for free during a given year. And really that allows for more flexibility between those that have said, I don't have a pickup, I can't get to the RSWCC, or I live right around the corner, I'd rather just drive there and utilize that more than have you come and pick up a bulk collection. So that policy change is within the recommended changes for this evening. Additionally, there is a rate change proposed for cost recovery on the bulk pickups. We are currently charging $30 for each bulk pickup. That's the cost that Waste Management charges us for each bulk pickup. They are raising that cost to $35, so we are in turn passing that additional cost on to those that select to have additional bulk pickups. Additionally, there are some solid waste fee updates. All of these are to adjust the cost to our current city cost for full cost recovery. So if you need an additional or replacement container, we charge $60 to our residents. That's what it used to cost us. It's now costing us $75. So the proposal is to increase that fee to cover our existing costs or our new costs. Additional or replacement containers for large alley containers. Those containers are much larger, and the increase to those fees has gone up substantially over the last year or two. We currently charge $235, and those bins cost us $430. So that's a cost recovery change. Additional container collection fee. So when you have multiple containers, there's an additional fee that you pay for the extra container that you have. And with the extra costs through our waste management contract, we're recouping those additional costs for the trash related to those extra bins for both normal collection containers and alley containers. And then finally, that additional bulk collection fee above the allocation from $30 to $35. Again, all of these are just to recoup actual costs the city is incurring for these services. So when we combine all of these changes that we've been discussing tonight, our combined average customer bill on the residential side will go from $75.89 to $78.13, a $2.24 per month increase for residences. And what do residents receive for what they pay for the utilities? They have a high quality water, wastewater, and solid waste service that ensures that when they need quality drinking water, it's available. When they use water, it has a place to go to be treated. And when they consume goods, their trash and recyclables are collected and disposed of timely and correctly. It also ensures that the system will continue to be maintained as needed to ensure future residents have equal access to those same essential services. On the multifamily side, their bill will be going up approximately $390 per month in total, which is about $31 per unit per year. And on the non-residential side, $166.91 per month increase. So how do we compare? First off, when we look at this, one thing to point out is the city of Tempe does an analysis each year, and this is based off of their analysis that they do. And their comparative volume that they utilize is slightly different from an average Chandler resident. Average Chandler resident uses 12,000 gallons, so that's what we use in our comparison charts. This uses 10,000, so the numbers are slightly different. If you're trying to tie them to a previous slide, it's because the volume of water is slightly reduced. But this shows our current rate at that 10,000 gallon for single family. For all costs is $72 at the city of Chandler. And with this change, that same 10,000 gallon resident would pay $75 with the new changes, and compares them then to other Valley cities, with Tempe being the next closest at $92, a significant increase from what a resident pays in the city of Chandler. We did the same analysis for our multifamily. Chandler currently the lowest in the Valley at $2,800 per month, going up to $3,200 per month, still the lowest in the Valley. And then again, for our non-residential, where we were second to lowest and going up very, very close to Tempe, bringing us to the third lowest cost. But we do know that all of these charts are based on rates that were have already been adopted, and we know many of these cities have proposed rates that will increase these above where we are at. We anticipate, especially on non-residential, that we will be again the lowest after those rates have been implemented at other cities. So the city of Chandler for all classifications would be lowest in comparison. So for these changes to be effective, there's an ordinance and a resolution for you to consider tonight. The ordinance number 5065 allows for changes to the City Code Chapter 44, Solid Waste, and Chapter 50, Utilities, to make the needed rate and fee policy adjustments as we've discussed. And then Resolution 5751 allows for changes to the fee schedule, which is where solid waste fees are presented. Comments for both utility rate changes as well as the policy and solid waste fee changes will be part of this public hearing. From a rate adjustment timeline, this shows where we're at in the process. We are at the public hearing and first ordinance read October 19th. The next step is for a final read November 9th. And then should this pass through mayor and council, the effective date of these changes would be for the January billing cycle beginning January 1st of 2024. And with that, mayor and council, I'm willing to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Matt. Why don't we start on our left and work over here?
Mayor. Matt, even with the proposed increase, it looks like our cost of service would be significantly lower than our neighbors. What do you attribute that to?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Poston, that's a great question. A lot of it has to do with how Chandler has managed those enterprise funds over the years. We've taken a very cautious approach, ensuring that every other year we do an evaluation on if we need rates, we add those rates to our to the costs. What that does is it shows to a lot of our bond agencies that we are a city that's watching our utilities closely, and that in turn gives them peace of mind and lowers the risk of a city Chandler investment, and that reduces our costs for our infrastructure. So anytime that we can save costs on infrastructure costs because our interest rate is the lowest that we can possibly get, that is a boon to the enterprise funds. Anytime that we can make any improvements in the services that we provide, that's a boon to the enterprise funds. And we have a wonderful staff that do that on an annual basis, look for ways to change processes, rework processes, so we don't have to build new facilities. We can re-rate an existing facility and utilize that more fully by changing the processes that we have. And that saves millions of dollars in most cases. We also we're coming at the kind of the end of build out of the city of Chandler. So most of our infrastructure is there, and a lot of our capital needs are now focused on aging infrastructure and ensuring that infrastructure is solid for the future. The other aspect of that, though, is ensuring that we're meeting any new EPA or other regulatory requirements. So our capital side is more infrastructure, aging infrastructure fixing related versus brand new infrastructure work, which is very costly. And when you look at some of the other cities, they have some very significant infrastructure costs coming into their capital plans, which adjust their rates significantly. So it's a kind of a blend of things. But when you look at the credit worthiness of the city of Chandler, the decisions that have been made in the past, it all leads to very low rates and maintaining quality services for those low costs.
Okay. And I received, and I'm sure some of my fellow council members received, and I don't know if this question is better for Don or for you, but some residents inquiring about some of the cash that the city has on hand. And that's restricted in reserves. We had a discussion on how to define that. Do you think you could speak to that a little bit, or you, Don, if possible?
Yeah, I can start out, and then when Don feels like there's additional items, she
Thank
can
you.
definitely jump in. I think we want to be very clear that we have two different funding or different fund mechanisms. We have a general fund, which is where taxes flow into, which pays for police, fire, streets, all the general operations of the government. And then we have enterprise funds, which are our utilities, and these are treated like unique funds, distinct from other funds in that they're supposed to be self-supporting funds. The revenues generated from those funds should equal or pay for all of the expenditures of that fund and be self-supporting. So we want to make sure that we're distinguishing between general fund and enterprise funds. On the enterprise fund, we do have specific requirements in our financial statements that say we will maintain a certain level of fund balance. Mm-hmm. And that level of fund balance is there as a precautionary tool, so to speak, to let people know that we anything can happen in a market, but we are prepared to handle whatever happens at the city of Chandler. And that really lets our rating agencies know that we are serious about financial policies and making sure that our utilities are sound. So we do maintain that threshold. And then as additional fund balance is accumulated, that additional fund balance is what we use for pay-go capital. We use it as it's a one-time revenue source. We use it for one-time expenditures, which are our capital programs. We don't use it for ongoing expenditures because we know it's just going to deplete down and then we're going to be in a bad situation. So on an annual basis, when we do our full analysis of the rate that we need, we look at making sure or ensuring that the enterprise fund itself has enough funding for the ongoing components.
And then that fund balance was about $92 million exactly? And that was something that we voted on just in our most recent budget in adjusting that policy, correct?
So through the mayor, Councilmember Poston, what Matt was just talking about is the fund balance policy within the enterprise funds.
Mhm.
I think what you're referring to is the emails that we're referring to
Yes.
$100 million. And I believe that's in relation to our general fund.
Correct.
So our general fund, as Matt stated, is where the tax dollars come in, and it supports the public safety, parks, rec, streets, all those general services in our city. So we have financial policies very specific to the general fund as well. And I think the 92.2 million that you're referring to is in our general fund. It says that we need to have 4 months operating reserve, and that equates to 92.2 million. So that's the reserve we hold in our general fund. And there's a lot more services that are provided in the general fund. And that is a best practice, and it is directly connected to our AAA bond rating. And I think through the end of 22-23, we had our revenues came in higher than our expenses. So we were able to, there was more one-time dollars because of the activity in our city. So we were very fortunate with that. And Mayor and Council, you then made decisions during the budget process as we prepared for the current fiscal year that started July 1st, 2023-24, to use those one-time dollars to fund the payoff of our pension obligation for police and fire, which has a direct benefit to reducing the contribution, the amount the city has to pay into the pension on an annual basis, because that payment was made up of the normal contribution and the unfunded liability. So by paying that off, we were able to reduce a future ongoing cost that thereby keeps our taxes low in the future. Additionally, you as a council made the decision to apply those one-time dollars towards capital, additional capital, to the tune of over the current year or over 22-23, it increased the capital. So again, paying with cash, not having to sell bonds to do the capital, 130 million higher than 22-23. So we were able to, through our capital program, add more general fund dollars to the street program, which then thereby reduce the amount we have to sell in bonds and not pay principal and interest, but use existing cash. We were able to add through parks, cash funded, and then technology is a big conversation with security, cybersecurity, and the replacement of our financial system in the city of Chandler. It's a big endeavor. We do not have bond authority for that, so that is an area that cash is appropriate. And so council made all those decisions with those additional one-time dollars. And then of course, if those are all designated, if that were all to get spent, what we're estimating would be our fund balance at the end of this year, it would be 123 million based on our projection. So we are just above the required financial policy of 92.2 million. So that was a long answer to your question, but there you go.
No, thank you. You all make a very complicated issue very easy to understand. I just have one more question, Mayor. I've been involved in the city government of Chandler for about 22 years, and I don't recall any time that this council as a body has used one-time funds to pay off ongoing expenses. Am I accurate in that? that has been a fiscal, I know it's something that we like to tout. It's very understandable and digestible to our residents, I think. But I don't recall a time that we've ever done that. Has there ever been a time that I'm not aware of?
Uh, since Mayor, Councilmember Poston, since I've been here only 4 years, I can only speak for the last 4 years where we have been structurally balanced from an ongoing to ongoing, one-time to one-time perspective. Dawn's been with budget longer than I have, so maybe she has additional insight into that.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Poston, Matt's actually been with the city since 2012. He's referring to his time in the budget division, but since I've been here since 2007, and I can't recall us doing that. We that is one thing I think mayor and council has been very successful with over the years. That ongoing revenue is used to support those ongoing expenses that we know will continue over and over and over. And one-time revenue we try to put towards capital and things that once you spend it, it's gone. So we don't want to depend on that for hiring positions and supporting services long-term. So that's been an ongoing financial policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was with the city in a different capacity, obviously, around 2001 and was here through 2008, 2009 during the recession. And I recall this council did not actually use that as an action. And I feel that that is good governance. It's something that I think every person on this dais has taken some pride in and has allowed us to do all of the things that we are able to do. A lot of those that Dawn mentioned. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Harris.
Well, I believe these questionings have really summed it up. As a person that is, if we were to take, let's just say hypothetically, just roll with me on this one. We hypothetically just took $100 million out of our fund, and we said, hey, we're not going to look at water increases, and we took $100 million out. What would actually $100 million cover when we have $81 million and $81 million that has to be paid to pay for 1,238 miles of mains. And then we have another 947 miles of pipes and valves that needs to be replaced. And that's at 131.8 million. So we took $100 million out and we said we're not going to increase. Where does that really leave us?
Through the mayor, Councilmember Harris, what that does, first of all, is you're taking one-time money to pay for an ongoing need in the enterprise funds. We are, just tonight, mayor and council voted on 2 bond issues that allows us to go out and sell bonds for projects we have in our 10-year capital plan. And one of them is not to exceed 75 million for water and wastewater projects, and that debt service is an ongoing cost. So if we use one-time money, that ongoing cost doesn't go away. It's there every single year. We would end up, the next time we need to go to rate increases, it just magnifies it. It doubles what you need, because right now, between all of our enterprise funds, we have an ongoing need based on everything of in total, about $8.69 million. So if we don't do this today, and we use one time, the expenses keep happening year over year, then we're in a position in our enterprise funds where our revenue coming in on an annual basis is not as high as the expenses going out. So we start drawing down our fund balance. But that one-time money could bring the fund balance back up, but it is a direct violation of our financial policies to use that. And certainly when we go out, every 2 years, we go out on the market and get our bonds rated, much like an individual gets a credit rating a credit rating report, and you can go out and get an automobile loan or something. If you have a very high credit rating, you get a very low interest rate. Much like a city, we get rated, and the rating, if it's AAA, that's the highest rating you can get. So that debt is a much, much lower cost. And of course, then also requires us to pay less in user fees or taxes. So having a AAA bond rating is extremely important. And if we start doing things against our own financial policies, that's something that's documented when we get reviewed, and can easily change that AAA bond rating.
And Dawn, every year the state requires the city for an audit. They require an audit for us to do. If we do the audit and this comes back, then what happens?
So through the mayor, Councilmember Harris, our audit is what's required in our city code to have an external auditing agency audit our city financials. And the results of that is a financial report that is used by our rating agencies to determine where we're at financially. That is part of the equation, that they use that information. They run all the different ratios and everything to see how we've performed year over year. It's more through the actions there and talking to staff, reviewing actions and votes by council that they determine if there's been consistency in the management of our financial practices. And that's just kind of part of the process in getting rated every other year for the city of Chandler.
Thank you. Just one last question. Was there any way that I noticed that the bins replacement was $75, and I didn't see where, Waste Management says, okay, after 20 years, 25 years, we got to replace this bin because it's going to get beat up pretty bad over the time. $75 is a big jump for our, maybe it's a new resident coming in, and I think not long ago my bin lost its helmet. So when do we know who replaces that? Is that built in, or do they have a time frame so our resident ain't paying $75?
Yeah,
Because my bin needs a helmet.
to the mayor, Councilmember Harris, that's a good question. So that replacement cost is only for damage done by the resident. Should they put coals in there and it burns a hole through the bottom, or they damage it. The carts are replaced on a replacement cycle through our solid waste division. They replace those on a periodic basis. And if you need a new helmet, or what'd you call it, a helmet, cap, whatever you need, they will come out and do that replacement for you at no cost. This is if you were to damage the actual existing container that you have, or you want an extra container. The first container's on the house. We get that through our monthly bill. You have an additional container, that's an additional charge for those individuals.
It may have gotten messed up during the Arizona Cardinals game, but I ain't the one to tell you.
I will pass the hat, Councilman.
Yeah. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. And Dawn and Matt, you guys are so good at like breaking this down and kind of showing us what's going on. I think one of the biggest challenges that I have is when I'm here, I always take the honor of, or the responsibility of advocating for the residents. So I'm so grateful, one, that we were able to do the creating equity so that our residents weren't subsidizing industry and our residents weren't subsidizing, landscaping, to make that parity. I don't know why councils before allowed that to go on for decades, but I'm grateful for this council for getting it fixed. And Vice Mayor Orlando noted he voted no. Thank you for doing that. But we've gotten that fixed, and I'm grateful for that, because that's my biggest concern here is our families are facing this financial headwind with inflation. We have fixed income families that are struggling, and I got to be honest with you, we have asked for more money and more money and more money, and I get it, right? We have inflationary pressures that's being caused by a federal government that we can't control. And so it's putting pressure on us financially to do things to our residents by raising prices. I wish we didn't have to do that. And we even talked about, just so you know, before this meeting started, we had a meeting about next year's budget. We were talking about all the headwinds that we're going to be facing, both macro and micro. We're going to be asking the chamber and other businesses what they're seeing year over year in dollars, so that we can track our sales tax, so we can track our impact fees, so we can do everything we can. Like, so we talk about the budget all the time, and we are so grateful for the things that you're doing. And I will tell you, from Monday when this was first on my desk, and Josh will attest to this, when we get into the budget, I'm always like, no more. We're not raising the budget. But we walk through some of these things, and you help me understand what we're paying for. And so one of the things that council just decided in the room in the back was, we are going to invest in core competencies, not the flashy things. We can see the headwinds coming, and so we're going to get into fixing the water mains. We're going to get into doing things to make sure that our water is cleaner. and easier to transport, and doing our best to keep that down. What I'm interested in is how do we balance our overage, revenue overage? Last year, I'll just be honest, with $65 million that was unbudgeted revenue that came in. This year, we're tracking at about 22 million that's going to come in over what's budgeted. And I know we were lucky we got to put that into PSPRS, but that's not a best practice in budgeting. I mean, we can all agree on that. So my question is how do I balance this tax burden on our residents with the overage we have on the general fund with being conscientious of our enterprise fund? Do you follow what I'm getting at?
Yeah,
And I
through
know
the
that's a
mayor.
really long-winded
Yeah.
leading question, but I'm dying to know, like, what do we do for our residents here? And I don't want to take more money in and give it out.
Yeah.
I want to find ways to mitigate cost increases.
So through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, you bring up some great points, and just a couple of things to reiterate. One is that that surplus that you're talking about from transaction privilege tax and other taxes coming in, that's all in general fund outside of the enterprise funds. So we do keep that separate, as Don mentioned, for financial regulators' perspective, from an internal what we want to do to maintain a general fund separate from enterprise funds. The overage on enterprise funds is a different story. So we do not have 60 million, 100 million extra coming in on our utility side. At times, we do have more revenue coming in on an ongoing basis than we have expenditures because we have a planned debt service issuance. We're going to issue debt in 3 years for a large facility or a large improvement. We have to have enough funding at that point to be able to pay the debt service on that or to add some additional pay-go capital to that. So we have to plan for those significant improvements, and that's why we do a 10-year view when we're looking at our rate adjustments for year one is based on a 10-year view of everything that's going to be hitting those enterprise funds. So to one of the points that you made was, how do we ensure that we're trying to minimize the impact to our residents? And I think looking at that annually is one of the ways that we do that. We look at our capital plan on an annual basis, and we evaluate through our partners in public works and utilities. They do an evaluation of which projects need to potentially move out, move up. Can the rate analysis that we have support the capital projects that we have, and which capital projects are absolutely necessary to make sure we're delivering quality water and treating the wastewater that's produced. So there's an extensive review that's done on an annual basis to try to ensure that on the enterprise funds. On the general fund, putting that hat on, how do we keep things from, our budget more in line with where we're actually budgeting? I think we've had several instances of unique things happen in our economy that have been difficult as a budget person to quantify what the net effect will be. First off, we had COVID, which we all thought would be a revenue dive, which did not happen. That was completely unexpected. And then we have an industrial partner in the city of Chandler who, after the budget is set, says, and by the way, we're going to invest billions of dollars in your community. Not having that foreknowledge of $20 billion means that your budget's going to be out of whack, unfortunately. So we've had several of those instances over the last couple of years that have really made it difficult to track what's going to happen. We also have legislative action with ARPA, AZ CARES dollars that have really affected on the general fund side those revenues. So the general fund side is a little different, and we're hoping that things get more in a normal zone from a projection standpoint. That'll make our lives easier. On the enterprise side, it is more of an easy projection to make. We know what the revenues are anticipated to be. The only kind of caveat is we don't know what the net effect of conservation will be. Conservation is a double-edged sword. It saves our residents money, but the less water we sell, the more we have to sell it for because it doesn't reduce our costs. It reduces some costs, but a lot of our fixed costs it does not reduce. So the water treatment, we're treating less water, that cost can come down, but a lot of those fixed costs are still there. So we have to be cognizant of all of that kind of tracking in that side, and that makes it a little bit more complex there. But from a budget perspective, we're pretty close to target on those.
Matt, that was a long question and a long answer.
Yes.
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying a few things there, especially for the public. Real quick, though, something was brought up about mingling general funds. I know that we made a vendor whole recently with regard to one of the services that they provide for us with a one-time shot of revenue. Where did that money come from?
I don't know that I know which.
We
what
just
you're
voted
speaking-
for $1 million increase. Josh, did that come from enterprise fund or general fund? That $1 million increase for waste management, which was the right thing to do.
Okay. Through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, I think what you're talking about is the vote tonight on the agenda using contingency funds for the.
No. This is like a month and a half ago.
Waste
Waste management.
Yeah,
Yes.
contract.
Okay, so the waste management contract, there are a collection carrier that picks up all the trash for residential homes in the city of Chandler. And they had, through COVID, experienced exponential,
Yeah, gas prices were. Gas prices
well, what's
are
the word I'm
extremely
looking for?
Yep.
Higher costs. So higher costs. We don't own the trucks. They own the trucks. Higher costs in managing the trucks, the fuel, the staff. And so that contract we was authorized to go up. We currently, what council has authorized is that we made a one-time payment for that extraordinary cost that they've experienced. But unless the fees pass tonight, then they're going to come forward for that to be an ongoing cost because they are our collection provider, and that is what it's costing for them to do that contract.
Yeah. So, thank you for that. And
Mhm.
we in waste management does a great job. I know personally.
Okay.
I'm tickled with their service, but okay. So we've done that before. I guess what's the deficit gonna? So we have commingled funds, but what's the deficit for this particular cost increase if we don't enact it? Did you say it was $8.67 million?
Yeah, through the mayor, Councilmember Stewart, it's
Okay.
8.6 million. But I do want to clarify.
That's a lot of money.
The waste management came out of the solid waste fund.
Yeah,
The enterprise
it didn't
fund.
come out
It
of
didn't
general.
come from general fund.
Okay. Okay. So
We didn't mingle.
okay, great. So so we had extra money to be able to use for that. Yeah. We had funds. Okay, I get it. So we had extra funds, but we're asking for more. But we had extra, so we keep that, and that came out of the contingency fund that's in the enterprise fund?
Correct. Through
Okay,
the mayor,
that
Councilmember
makes
Stewart,
sense.
it came from contingency and fund balance that existed in that fund.
All right, gotcha. So I guess my final question is, it goes back to what I said before, and then maybe this is a question for all of us, is what are we gonna do to mitigate increases? What are we gonna stave off? What are we gonna put off for a few years that we don't build right away? That is it maybe a core value to keep our costs low for so it's probably a rhetorical question, but and I want everybody to know that we're thinking about that. So thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, so most of the questions have been answered. It's great. So next time, Mayor, start on this side. So, but what I like about this, and I think Councilmember Stewart alluded to, is the equity piece of this. We rebalanced this portfolio a little bit last year. We went full board this year. To me, that's probably the biggest issue right now, that our residents should not be subsidizing someone else's usage of the water. If they're using it and they're using the services, they need to pay for it. So I applaud the council for pushing hard for that. One of the things you talk about, reducing cost. Remember, we were the first city to do impact fees here, where the developers came in here and either they put the infrastructure in or they paid us to put the infrastructure in. That saved the residents, I can't remember, millions and millions of dollars. Other cities didn't get on board with that. And other cities also had to pay for it today. So again, it's the foresight. That's what we did to reduce cost. We put together impact fees. The mayor, I think you were on the council, I remember, we took a lot of heat from some of the industries because they said, you can't do this. Well, you know what? We did. And it deserved, and the Chandler's residents and the Chandler community made out better for it. So the impact fees was huge for us. Now, of course, as we're building out, we can't use those impact fees for infrastructure improvements. And that's why we're here today talking about the enterprise funds, because that 50 years ago and the 30 years ago need to be fixed, need to be re-evaluated, reassessed. And we have to fix those things today. And there's some creative ways of doing it. We heard the other day about a wastewater treatment, a pipe. Instead of digging that pipe up, we could actually put in this little balloon type of thing and explodes around. I don't know. It's like I give you get a flat tire and you go with the rubber But that's innovation. That's saving us millions of dollars. So there's a couple more examples of innovation. And finally, we've done joint projects. We've done joint projects with the Gila River Indians. We're doing that today. I believe Gilbert. We have a joint project with Gilbert. We almost had one with Tempe a few years ago, Mayor. You were on that one that fell through. So we are looking at ways of innovation. We are looking at ways of saving the taxpayer dollars. I mean, that's our role up here. The CIP next year, to go back to the how do we save that? We'll look at the CIP. And if there's something that can fall out because it's way too expensive, we'll push it out. But we have to do our business. We have to keep the doors open in Chandler. I can't shut it down, or I can't say for that $2 and a water main breaks. I mean, what's more costly, maintenance or waiting till it breaks? And that's my concern right tonight. So this is incremental. I hate to do this as anybody else does, but I am trying to my best foot forward to residents. We're doing the best we could with the money you're giving us, and you trust us to make these decisions. And I appreciate that for trusting us. So with that, Mayor, I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that, Matt. And Ms. Dawn, thank you again for this really labor of love, because you guys were really beating at the bits this afternoon to tell us about the next thing you're working on with the budget. One of the things that I really appreciate that's happening here tonight is the transparency in all of this, for us to show the public that truly this is what we do with whatever they have given us. We are a business. The city is being run like a business. Councilmember Stewart, you always said that we are just board members here and we are managing the business of this city. In order for us to do that, we have to be really well equipped and understanding of what is it that we need to do next, not just today, but we need to forecast 5 years, 10 years from now. And you guys have done that really well. I've lived here for 38 years. And I can tell you, when these impact fees and all these things were happening, I was in the middle of building a huge project. And that fell on us, building a $23 million project. We had to pay to fix the road that was going to happen right next to us. We had to put money into the project to do that. And that in itself really told me that I paid my share and now I can enjoy water. And everybody else have to do their share, whether we do it now or we do it 5 years from now. If my daughter come back to live here, she's gonna have to do her share because I've done mine. So absolutely, everybody will have to do it. There's no question about that. And I think what really I want to leave here tonight, and those who have sit here and listened to this whole process, I want you to leave here tonight understanding that every single day, what's happened on this dais has been worked on hours upon hours upon hours in the back rooms behind us here, whether it's staff who's working on it or ourselves. I told one of the council members today that I'm not going to lose sleep over certain things, but there are certain things where we have to ponder over them and we have to figure out what's going to happen in the future over those type of things. So I encourage you to get involved, stay involved, look into the numbers that we have given you tonight. If you think that $3 is too much for you to turn on your faucet and get good water that will not give you cancer, because that's exactly where we just put $12 million into filters to filter that water that is coming back to us all the way from up there, with all the fires and everything that have been happening up north. When we get that water, it comes with all those things in it, and we have to filter it. We cannot pass it on to you that same way. And business is business. We're doing business here for you. We're doing business so that this city can continue to have a AAA bond rating. That doesn't happen overnight. It's all the good, great decisions that have been made prior to us with other council members that we are enjoying now. But if we keep passing the buck down, it's gonna keep passing down to those other people that are coming here, and they're not gonna love sitting here to do the work. And maybe some of your kids will be council members also in the future. They will not love to do this work if we are not doing it the right way for them. So I appreciate you all being here tonight. Thank you so much for being part of what we are doing here in this city. With that, Mayor, I yield to my next colleague here.
Councilmember Encinas.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure that there's much left for me. This has been a very extensive conversation behind the scenes with all of our council. So I do appreciate all your guys' hard work and your guys' thoughtfulness in this, and especially our staff. And I'm just extremely appreciative that with this, we're still remaining in single digit rates. We're not in the double rates compared to other cities. We still remain one of the lowest rates and fees that are going on across the board here throughout our city. And even looking at our projections for a third phase coming into 2025, 2026 to 2028, we have those projections still remaining in those single digits. Let's hope they stay there. But I'm just appreciative of all your guys' work, and let's continue this on. Thank you.
Council, I'm going to speak the words that you're going to be most excited about. I have nothing else to add to this conversation. With that, I'd like to close our council discussion. I have 2 speaker cards from the audience. You have up to 3 minutes. If you wish to speak, state your name and address. And the first is Leslie Minkus. Mr. Minkus.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate that. My name is Les Mikas. I live at 3372 East Gemini Court, Chandler, Arizona, 85249. Now, since all of you are, we run a great business here out of the city, and all of you are members of the board, want to remind you that we are all shareholders. And therefore, we are entitled to certain information that we should be getting. Some of that information has not as been transparent, including the information about, and thank you, Mayor, for responding to my email to you, pointing out the fact that there's an enterprise fund, but we don't get a financial statement on the enterprise fund. So we don't know how much money is actually coming in, how much money is actually going out, whether there's a profit or a loss in those funds. And when you mingle it with the general fund, we've got over $100 million of excess revenue. It kind of reminds me of an analogy of the fact that if I was putting my reserve money away to save money for my children's college education, and all of a sudden I ran into a problem where I couldn't afford to pay for my food, I'd have to take some money out of my reserve college education and put it towards my food so we can survive. Well, that's something that we're currently actually finding is going on. And I'm surprised we didn't take a few minutes for a moment of silence to talk about all of the terrible atrocities that are going on throughout the world with Ukraine and Israel and the tragedies that are going on there. But those are things that could be coming around and could be looking us in the face, not only in the United States, but also here in Chandler. So while we do want to have reserve money on hand, we also have to make certain that we understand that we're addressing the issues of the people in Chandler today. And as you've all pointed out, there are people that are on fixed incomes and they are in need, and going through an increase right now may not be very good for them. And we have over $100 million of additional funds. We should be looking at some of that money being able to apply it and maybe move this off, or only put part of the increase in at this time this year, because this hasn't passed yet until November, but only put part of it in this year, and maybe things will get better next year and people will be able to afford it better next year. So these are the kinds of things that I had in mind. Also, the fact that we have had increases, we've had salary increases of staff in the city of Chandler. We have had losses that have taken place that I don't really hear anybody talk about. And I'd like to know if there is something that has been done about the water, the sewer, and the losses that we've had, because we have over in a 7-year period of time from fiscal year 2015 to 2022, we have $3,331,000 of losses in the collection of money from water and sewer, from renters, from homeowners, people that never paid the city.
Thank you, Mr. Minkus. Your time's up.
Okay. I'd like to know what we're doing about that so that we can know that the city is handling that in a proper way.
Mayor.
Thank you. Dawn, can you first address, is there an address or a location that people can find information? And then secondly, I know I asked that question earlier about that, but how do we compare to other cities with that? I think Matt had mentioned 0.2% was like 360,000. Was that per year or per over this 3-year?
Okay.
So a couple questions that Mr. Minkus asked.
Okay, I'll start with the audit. Well, the question regarding the financial statements for general fund versus enterprise funds. So as Councilmember Harris asked earlier about the annual audit we do, that financial statements online, we actually have 5 years of those financial statements, and you can see the general fund and the enterprise funds listed out separately. There's a balance sheet, profit and loss, an analysis on every fund, and that's part, again, of the rating agencies. That's our government accounting principles, the way in which we have to prepare those financial statements. It's a nationwide practice. So those are out there for the public as well. Additionally, and those are available anytime. And if anyone has questions, we are happy to meet with any resident in the city. Did I answer all of that first question?
Yes, the
Okay.
second part had to do with the, when people don't pay their bills, what do we
Uncollectibles.
do? And what is it per year? And what do we do to track that and how successful?
Okay, so
And comparing to other cities.
Okay, so in our utility funds, there are uncollectibles. That happens. That's part of running a utility. The last 3 years, I will tell you, just the last 3 years, our average uncollectible is 0.2%, which is $245,647 is what that equates to on average per year for the last 3 years. What Mr. Minkus mentioned about the last 7-year history, we did have a couple years prior to the last 3 years that did increase that average to 428,571. So that is still below 0.5%. For utility to be below 0.5%, that's extremely well. It is just the nature of a utility. The only time we would write off an account is if the account is closed and we have been unable to do the collection through our own means. And when that happens, and we cannot track down the person in which the account is closed, then we will, at the last resort, turn it over to collection agency, and then they'll work the issue. They have a lot more access to records that they can do as well. So we've been very successful. I think over the last 3 years, the result of the economy being better, I would say that's probably part of the impact why that uncollectible balance has come down. We have really good processes in place. But as we compare to other cities, I think coming out of COVID, we rewrote how we manage our collections. We rewrote that policy internally, and we reached out to all our surrounding cities to get their policies and find out where they were at. And they were all higher than the city of Chandler. So we were feeling pretty good about where we were at. I think our staff has done an amazing job as working the new policy. There's a lot of effort that goes into it before it gets to the point of actually having to pass that off to a collection agency.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are on our utility collections as of today.
Okay. Did you have a further?
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask Don to explain the whole process. I know during COVID, we had a lot of people who were going through a lot of issues and things, and we were able to work with them through one-time dollars and paying some of these things so that we can bring them current and then continue to work with them until they find jobs or different things happen for them to be current with us. So that's still helping our community.
Vice Mayor, do you have additional
Yeah,
questions?
just real quick, Dawn, what have do we have a listing of what dollars we did recoup?
I don't have that with me. That can happen over many years, but on an annual basis, we will get a check back from the collection agency. I can certainly
Yeah,
get
let's
that
do
to you.
that. And then if we do have a person that we know was bad credit, do we have a way of tracking that, or does the agency have a way of tracking that where we could actually, have them put up more money up front before we give them more, things like that?
Through the mayor or Vice Mayor Orlando, yes. When somebody opens up a utility account, they do need to put down a deposit if they don't have, there's documents they have to show. If they can show that they have not had any issues with previous utility accounts, they do not have to put down the deposit. But we do collect a deposit, and that gets returned after a certain amount of time of having that history in place.
Okay,
So we have that practice in place when there's a new account.
okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Council, I've got one more speaker card before we close the public hearing. Mr. Rick Human? Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Rick Human, 4310 West Dublin Street, Chandler, Arizona. I'm here representing the Chandler Chamber of Commerce as the past board chair. We had Matt do a great presentation to our public policy meeting a few weeks ago to really explain things. We are in favor of what's going on. The financial policies that have been put in place by this council for the last 50 years, I was part of that. Having strong reserves, having AAA bond ratings, not using ongoing money for one time for ongoing, I think is super important. The 0.2% deficit or debt thing is unbelievable. Most of our businesses will tell you if we had a 0.2% deficit, bad debt, we'd be jumping up for joy. People run between 5 and 10% at least, especially in a bad economy. But we're just here today that we did send a letter to Mayor and Council in the last few weeks that we're asking when the next rate increases looked at in a couple of years, we look at the economic impact that the businesses bring. When the rates go up for residents, it's hard. Nobody wants to pay more for water, but the business community really wants reliable service, reliable water. We can't have companies like Intel and Rogers and Northrop and all these other people without that guarantee. People aren't going to want to come as a business unless we have the stability in terms of that. So we're not in favor of robbing Peter to pay Paul in the long run. Having Don and Matt here for as many years as we've had them, and the quality that's offered to explaining things, we've always been transparent. So we're just here as a chamber, supporting what the council's doing, making sure that we have reliable and safe water for the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Council, I think we're ready to close the public hearing. Then we have to vote on these two action items. So closing the hearing, back in our session. I'm having gavel fun time tonight. Council, before us, we have items number 49 and then items number 50. 49 introduces the adoption of Ordinance 5065, Utility Rate and Policies. Item 50, Resolution 5751, amending the citywide fee schedule. Council, how would you like to vote?
Here, I move that we pass resolution the action item number 49 and 50 tonight.
City Attorney, can we do both at once, or would you feel more comfortable separately?
Because they are action items, I would prefer that we have separate votes on them.
Okay, can we take that as item number 49, Council Member? So we've got a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Council Member Poston. Council, I know we've all had a chance to talk, so if you're ready, let's vote.
Motion carries by majority with Councilmember Stewart dissenting.
Okay, thank you. And item number 50 is a resolution that modified some services and other things. Council, how would you like to proceed? Vice Mayor.
I move that we approve resolution number 5751, amending the city-wide fee schedule relating to public works, utilities department, solid waste division, section 7.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilmember Encinas. Again, Council, we've had opportunity to discuss this just behind us. How would you like, please vote?
Motion carries by majority with Councilmember Stewart dissenting.
Very good, thank you. Councilmember Harris called in two briefing items. So item number 51, understand a presentation by our Assistant Chief, Melissa Deandra. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, I'm going to be doing a presentation on our department's, actually, let me switch over to our slideshow.
Matt, don't walk away. She's still looking for you.
No, that's not mine.
It's
Sorry. It's okay. I don't think you want me talking about the general fund.
No, where'd my mouse go? Okay, there you go. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, there we go. Good evening. So I'm going to be doing an update on our employee health and wellness programs, the Solari crisis response, as well as our behavioral health unit. So our employee health and wellness programs play a crucial role in promoting productive and engaged workforce. Our initiatives include mental, physical, and stress management, which is aimed at improving long-term health and job satisfaction of all of our personnel. So our mental health, specifically, we onboarded in March of 2022 our first health and wellness coordinator. She is responsible for overseeing our department's health and wellness strategies and initiatives. She leads our peer support team and our wellness committee. She also distributes a monthly newsletter which provides updates on wellness initiatives throughout the department. And she's also played a crucial role in our wellness focused centered, which is helping our officers that are in crisis or in need. Department-wide, we offer training of mindfulness and resiliency to reduce stress and help them remain calm. We've also partnered with Vitania, which uses brainwave technology to reduce stress and help our employees with sleep. We currently have 92 employees that are participating in that program. We also have 3 wellness rooms at each of our precincts and another one at our public safety training center. We also have access, all of our employees have access to a bulletproof app, which offers 24/7 support for resources and articles to help them when for resiliency, work-life balance, or any type of marital support. Internally, we also have a peer support team, which is comprised of 25 of our department members, and they're there to assist with processing employees who are exposed to traumatic events and helping them process through that. In addition to our mental health, physical health is also a very important focus as well. And knowing this, we have partnered with Sigma Tactical Wellness, and we had 237 employees participate in this cardiac metabolic screening, which did an ultrasound of their carotid, did a stress test, and provided them with an overall health screening. We also provide yoga classes in person once a month, and then we also have 24/7 access online. We have upgraded all of our gym equipment at all of our training centers, at the training center and all of our 3 precincts. And we have a workout of the day that goes out by our training center to encourage our employees to work out and exercise. Additionally, we've recently partnered with Lightbright, which is a healthy meal option service, so that our employees are making healthier choices as opposed to fast food. We also look at the family and financial health and understanding the importance of financial wellness. Given this, we have began offering financial discipline, courses on financial discipline and the importance of financial planning. We also offer a 4-course work-life balance seminar. And we've partnered with Compassion Alliance, which has events that are geared towards spouses and children of law enforcement officers. And then in addition to all of these programs, we also have EAP through the city, the Tumbleweed Rec Center, and we have nutrition and much more online. Moving forward and looking into this year, some of our new and more innovative programs that we have is, as you'll see in this image, is our Pause for Police. This is a brand new program that we started 2 months ago, where we partnered with 17 volunteers who are therapy dog handlers, and they will come into our department and spend anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours with our department employees. We also have we're piloting the city's Baby at Work program. We currently have 2 employees within our department that are either participating or registering in the program currently. We also just received our first cold plunge, which is down at the training center, which is aimed at improving circulation and reducing anxiety. And then we're also looking at a program to potentially compensate our officers, either on the front end or back end of their shift for getting in a workout or some type of physical fitness. But overall, we remain committed and to the continued well-being of our department members while fostering a robust and health-conscious culture within our organization.
Yes, thank you so much for this presentation. Mental health is a very important issue, and we have to kind of continually put it out there so people know that our officers are getting what they need and our law enforcement is ready and equipped. I've always shared that the worst thing we can have as a city is law enforcement, pulling over our constituents and they're not in good mental health. And it kind of just corresponds. So I'm really happy about what we're doing with our law enforcement and how it pertains to mental health. I think we need to continue it on, but I wanted to bring this forth so our residents can see what we're doing and how we're continuing to impact our officers and making sure that they're having resources available. So again, I just want to say thank you, and I just want to have this presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I know, Council, we still got a number of other things after this, but are there any questions or
quick
comments
question.
you'd like to make?
One quick question.
Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you so much, Chief, for the presentation. I know that as a mental health nurse, it is important for people to have privacy. And what is it that you guys have put in place to encourage our officers to access these programs without having to feel a stigma that goes around with mental illness, or whether they feel fatigue or whatever it is, to stop them from going? Is there parameters that we have put in place for those kinds of things?
Yeah, definitely on a myriad of different levels. So I mentioned our peer support team earlier with the 25 members of our department. Any conversations that are had between that member of a peer support team and one of our employees, that is protected conversation. It is private. It is not shared. Additionally, and with some of the other programs that we have, such as I mentioned the Bulletproof app, that is something that is individual on an employee's cell phone, and they can go in and look up services, read articles, get a hold of a support center, and that's all done within privacy, as well as EAP. That is all protected information. So we do take definite steps to ensure the privacy and confidentiality of the experiences or the trauma that our employees are facing, and then the help that they're seeking to help them with that.
Thank you so much for putting those guidelines in place. I know that will give people more sense of comfort to access those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right, and Councilmember Harris has also called for a second hearing or a briefing, I'm sorry.
I'm going to move on. There's two more items on that first one, so I'm going
Oh,
to.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
Please
fine.
go ahead.
I'm going to touch base on Solari real quick. So as you know, we established our relationship with Solari in August of 2021. And then in March of this year, we embedded a Solari crisis liaison in our communications division. And what their role is to listen to calls as they come in and provide our call takers with additional information and resources to offer the caller assistance when they're in need. Additionally, they review calls on a weekly basis to see if there are calls where additional services could have been offered. In all, Solari liaisons have worked a total of 670 hours in our communications division. And since the inception of our partnership with Solari since August of 21, we have diverted a total of 692 calls for service. So overall, this has been an extremely successful partnership, which has allowed our department to increase the services to individuals within our community. And then lastly, our behavioral health unit. So our behavioral health unit, the mission of this unit is to provide a multidisciplinary approach to assist individuals in crisis, reduce their exposure to the criminal justice system, and refer them to appropriate community services. Our behavioral health unit will be comprised of specially trained officers who will assist with mental health order pickups, assist patrol with in-progress calls for service, and they collaborate with community partners to establish follow-up care. Some of those partners include CR 288, our City of Chandler Navigators, our municipal courts, specifically the mental health court, and then externally, Oasis, Copper Springs, Aurora Behavioral Health, as well as Solari. So basically, when they are fully staffed, this team will have 1 sergeant and 4 officers. The sergeant is already in place with this unit, and then we will be adding 2 of the 4 officers beginning in January of this year.
Councilmember, oh no, Councilmember Harris, this is your first.
Yes, this is great news. This is good. And I wanted to compliment our law enforcement because recently I was just at the Trip Cheney's family park, and the HOA president had called, and the commander had reached back out to him, and they had a great conversation because there was unsheltered at the park, and our commanders jumped into action and helped. And I think it's and then also I spoke with Leo Powell, and it was just a joint. And I just love how our law enforcement, they when it's an unsheltered person, they jump into action. They know what the resources are. They have the information to give, and they immediately go into action. And I really, and I since we've been expanding on this, this has really helped as a tool to help our law enforcement out there when they're dealing with variety of items. And again, us making sure we as a city not criminalizing our homeless or our unsheltered, but making sure we're coming alongside of them and giving resources. And throughout that process, we continue to see our law enforcement be very respectful to our unsheltered and treating them with dignity and respect. And I really love that. And I love the fact that they come alongside. So good job. I see Chief is back there. Sean Duggan's back there. Your men and women is doing a really good job. And I really appreciate that. So
Thank
again,
you.
I can't wait to see the fully staffed group in January. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Additional comments, Councilmember Ellis?
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to thank City Manager for taking the vision and ran with it. I remember when I first asked Chief about the need of the department, and that was something that was very heavy on your heart, considering the fact that out of the 3% of people that we interact with, 2% of them had a mental health issues. And when I brought this to our colleagues, everybody was on board to try to push that. I wanted to thank the vice mayor and everyone who saw the need, and they were really willing to put a lot of resources behind it in order for us to arrive where we are tonight. So thank you again for doing the work, Chief, and making sure that now we can see that Chandler, we have a unit. And it's important for us to do so because at the time when I was talking about it, everybody was asking me why. And because I saw the need. And I had been working with Scottsdale for years with that, having homes where my patients were getting out in the street and people were picking them up and then putting them in jail rather than seeing that those patients were really having mental issues and they needed to have Leah or someone like Leah Powell's department come to their rescue. So I applaud you all for doing the work, and thank you again to all my colleagues for making sure that this now we can be saying that we do have a mental health unit here in Chandler. Appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
We're,
you.
we're excited about bringing on the unit. It will definitely help elevate what we're already providing and adding additional services. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that.
All right, our next, thank you, Assistant Chief DeAndra. We have another briefing item, 52, retail theft and crime. Are you also presenting this?
Doing that as
All
well.
right,
Yes.
we get a
Get to
twofer.
see a little bit more.
Short straw.
All right, well, thank you. So organized retail crime is the large-scale theft of retail merchandise with the intention to resell the item for financial gain. So currently in Chandler right now, some of the main trends that we're seeing when it comes to organized retail theft is involving Legos over the price tag of $100, specifically Star Wars Legos. KitchenAid mixers are continuing to be very popular. Laundry detergent, specifically Tide Pods. And then also we have our vinyl records. Vinyl records are the records that are coming back. We're seeing a high volume of those being stolen from Target, as well as power tools. When these items are stolen, you will often find that they're being resold on platforms such as Facebook Marketplace or OfferUp. And in order for our detectives to combat these type of crimes, we have to work in a collaborative effort with the retailers within our region, as well as the prosecutors through the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. And we work with it in partnership with ORCA, which is the Arizona Organized Retail Crime Association. And really what they do is they share information in order to, their goal is to identify and disrupt and apprehend the suspects who are committing these crimes.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I want to reserve my comments because the presentation following this is from the Arizona retailers that also works in partnership. So I will probably reserve my comments to allow the retailers to kind of come up and share, and then I'll just speak from
Hey,
there,
real
if
quick.
that's okay with you, Mayor.
Council, any comments for Assistant Chief
Go
Vice Mayor?
Um, how much effort is police officers on this type of program, shoplifting? How much time? Give me a basis of how prolific it is in Chandler.
So, so organized retail crime is happening across the
Right.
nation. So what you're not seeing in Chandler is these smash and grabs that you're seeing in larger cities where they're coming in and stealing high volumes of purses or completely destroying stores. You're not seeing that in Chandler. What we're seeing is more of like the items that I showed you, where they're going into your Walmarts, your Targets, your Home Depots and Lowe's, and they're stealing these other items that they can quickly resell on other platforms. We do have dedicated detectives that work in our property crimes unit that are dedicated to these type of investigations. But where the true work is happening is with the partnership with AZ Orca, and that's with the retailers and our detectives across the region partnering together to locate and apprehend these suspects.
Okay, so your police officers then, if someone is caught inside the store, then obviously your police officers are called and have
Absolutely.
to go
Absolutely.
do the paperwork, make the arrest, and that does take a lot of time, obviously.
It does.
Streets,
Yes.
right?
Yep. If there's follow work to be done, it would be assigned to our detectives bureau.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Mayor.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. Thank you, Assistant Chief. That was very thorough. I appreciate everything you said about Solari as well as what's going on. And I'm glad you brought up the cash and the smash and grab. Do you feel like you're being supported by the courts as it relates to arrest in those areas? I know you say it's not happening, but there is some shoplifting that's going on.
Yeah.
Is our Attorney General prosecuting? Is our Maricopa County Attorney prosecuting? And how many of these go to our courts and are we prosecuting?
So
Because we're not having that in Chandler.
yeah, so when we're dealing with organized retail crime, when I talk about AZ Orca, it's that partnership. So it's the partnership between the law enforcement, the retailers, and our prosecutorial bodies. So we do work collectively with the Maricopa County's Attorney's Office, and they are very, very active in assuming these investigations and charging them. To give you an exact number on, I don't know for our city, but we have had a very successful partnership with them and no issues.
Thank you. And if that changes, I think I could speak for council. We want to know.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilmember Poston.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Any recommendations for our residents? I think a lot of us are on Facebook Marketplace or offer up other than if it's too good to be true.
Yeah, and that is really the main focus. So if something is too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. If you start seeing it's a little bit sophisticated. So some of the suspects have what I would call like a fencing operation, and they have pretty sophisticated websites that or profiles that they'll have on OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace, where you may not be able to determine what they're actually doing. So sometimes it is difficult to determine if they are in fact stolen products. But the biggest thing you can probably look for is if it is too good to be true. It is.
Do they look like your neighbor? The profiles look like your neighbor?
Yeah, it could be anyone.
They're good at what they do.
Yes, very much so.
Thank you.
Continue, Councilmember.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up the Arizona retailers to talk to us about what.
Thank you, Assistant Chief. Yeah.
Thank you. Michelle, she's gonna come up and talk to us about what she's seeing and what's the trends are, because this is such an important issue and I wanted to make sure that we're staying on top of it.
Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Michelle Ulmer. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Retailers Association. We're located at 224 West 2nd Street in Mesa, Arizona. And I want to especially thank Councilmember Harris for reaching out to us to find out more information about organized retail theft. And it is an issue that is everywhere, as Assistant Chief has mentioned. And we'd like to be able to stand here and say, Chandler is free of organized retail theft. Unfortunately, you are not. I'll give you a little background on who we are. We represent retailers statewide, large and small, and it hits every area of retail. So about in 2007, we helped to organize AZ Orca, as the Assistant Chief mentioned. It is where law enforcement and retailers and prosecutors and even some federal agencies such as Homeland Security or Postal Service or Secret Service come together once a month, share cases, share best practices, and they can coordinate on how to address these cases that are before them. When it started, as you may imagine, retailers were a little bit hesitant to partner with each other because we're competitors. That is all evaporated. And this is an area where retail works together to try and go after the same people who are in all the stores. And so that's a really important area for us. We also have, under the umbrella of the Retailers Association, a loss prevention committee where we work on legislation. We have really good laws at the state of Arizona, some of the best in the nation, where it allows flexibility for prosecution and for law enforcement to actually make arrests instead of having dollar figures associated with it, because then they will just come in right underneath that dollar limit. Or we don't have a limited or a number of people who have to be involved in order for it to be considered organized retail crime. Organized retail crime is different than shoplifting, and you'll hear more of that from our we have a retailer here with us today that's representing the Loss Prevention Committee and AZ Orca. He's the acting chair tonight. So I'll let him address all of those things. But I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity. Just to give you some devastating statistics. Organized retail crime is impacting the United States in 2019. And so you can imagine during COVID, when everyone was wearing masks, it went up. But in 2019, we were at $68 billion a year nationwide. In Arizona, 1.35-ish billion a year, which if you work out the population breakout, and we've since been talking about what losses are kind of per company, and we're spitballing, but it works out per population that's about 53 million to losses in Chandler alone. And that seems to be right in line with what we're seeing with losses. So that is a significant amount of loss. Our biggest concern is, while we don't like to lose money, our biggest concern is safety. We're concerned about our employees. We're concerned about our customers. And that's why you see a lot of the incidences where it's like, why aren't they going after them? They're running out of the store with all this merchandise. It's because we don't want anyone to get involved in an incident where someone could be harmed. It's happened, and there has been harm, and we want to avoid that in all situations. So a lot of the work that we do is on the back end. We've invested millions in the retail industry per company to build up technology, to put really well-trained detectives, former law enforcement in our stores, investigators in the stores doing the work, because those boosters, we call them boosters, the people who are in the store actually stealing this stuff, they're a dime a dozen. You are never going to arrest enough of them. There will never be an end of that supply. But the fences, that's who we want to go after. And we're really so grateful for the Chandler Police Department. They have been fantastic partners with us. They have won our Law Enforcement Officer of the Year award multiple times. We are very grateful for the support that they have given us. Chandler is divided into two sections, and that allows for a really good coordination, as opposed to having really break off things by neighborhood. That makes it harder to work on these cases. And so the way that Chandler is set up is really great. The support that they have from the chief and the assistant chief, the detectives that we work with, we are grateful for Chandler. But there's always more that can be done. And so we're grateful for the opportunity to educate today. And with that, with the remaining time, I will turn it over to Brian Barrett. He's the loss prevention chairman for the association, as well as the acting president of the board of AZ Orca.
Good evening.
So I am the acting, as Michelle said, I'm the acting chair for both the Loss Prevention Committee for the Retailers Association and for AZ Orca Group, which was mentioned by the Assistant Chief. So first thing is I really want to distinguish the difference between three different types of offenders that we're talking about here. So shoplifting, the traditional subject going into the store, being apprehended, those are the lowest levels of offenders. And those are happening daily, but those are not what we're looking at this point. Okay, so those are just processed out, they're cited, they're released typically, and we move on. The second piece is what we call a habitual offender. So from this, you'll think of someone who's running out of a gas station each day with a pack of beer, or some of those offenders that are more nuisance offenders. And those are still under the shoplifting statute. They're more for personal use. And those are, again, processed, handled as a case, and we move on. But the third piece we're really talking about is this ORC. And ORC, organized retail crime, is really what's impacting the bottom line. There's been several retailers that have come out. They've had to close stores. You've seen the margins drop. You've seen the sales tax revenue drop. And what ORC really is people going from multiple locations, usually in the same day. They're employed by this fencing location or fencing person, which is more of a white collar crime. They're not the ones that are in the location doing the crimes. They're the ones that are buying and driving these addicts or people that are in need of money to be able to make these thefts and then sell to them to be able to resell. That impacts the retailers multiple times because there's the theft of the items, there's the inability to sell those items, and then that fencing location undercuts the retailer. So then the retailer can't sell the items because those items are being purchased by another or being resold by another party. So all the retailers work together. You'll see Lowe's and Home Depot side by side, CVS and Walgreens, Target and Walmart, all side by side working on these offenders, sharing information through AZ Orca. We also use a platform called Aurora, which is an intelligence information sharing platform. But it's the retailers, it's law enforcement, and it's prosecution. And I think the difference on this one is the retailers. Like the victim is actually involved. There's investigators. We harden the targets. A lot of you have been in and probably seen lockup merchandise now, armed guards at some stores, more resources that are put in. So that's happening at the retail level where we're actually combining and working the cases, but also making it more difficult to commit those crimes. And then from a law enforcement side, we've really moved into specialization. And both Michelle and the assistant chief mentioned this, is there's some great detectives. And I actually want to call one out in particular to you guys, and it's Detective Dietz, who I want to recognize personally. He's been incredible. He's very passionate about it. He works a lot of these cases. He'll combine them and make sure that they're larger, more impactful cases. So Chandler PD has been wonderful for us. They're an agency that we rely upon to impact the whole market, the market being Maricopa County, Phoenix. And then the third piece is prosecution. So there's multiple avenues of prosecution. There's obviously the county, then the state at the AG level, and then the federal level through the AUSAs. And we leverage all of them. But Rachel Mitchell at the county level has been very vocal on this topic. You've probably seen some of the content she's put out, but very vocal, very passionate about making sure that what's happening in other places doesn't happen in Chandler, Maricopa County, or Arizona. And then at the AG's level, also focusing on this too, through the task force and through prosecution. So we encourage this to continue. We want to continue to make sure this doesn't impact Chandler in this area and through that combination of work at those three levels.
Councilmember Harris.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and thank you for taking the time out to come and talk to many of our businesses. I know that we have the president, Terry Kimball, the president of Chandler Chamber of Commerce, who we work very closely with. I just wanted to make sure the community know what we're doing and how Chandler continues to be proactive and making sure that if there are issues going on in our businesses, know, hey, we have a proactive approach, and Officer Dietz that's out there, and maybe we can get him to, Terry, I don't know if it's possible, we can start getting him introduced to some of our businesses here, so that way we can have a point person on the ground as well. But just making sure that we're continuing to put the information out there. The purpose is to let people know, like, look, you come into our community, you disrupt our community, we're coming for you. And that's just what this is. And making sure that we send that solidarity, that we stand with our businesses, and we're going to make sure we stand alongside. And you guys are doing a wonderful job. And thank you to Chief and Assistant Chief for being here tonight. And I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor, you had a quick question.
Yeah, I do. Actually, it's a request, Michelle. You heard me say this before, but I want to say it publicly, and I got to ask your support. You talked about relying on us to help you. It's no secret the legislator has been slowly taking away some of our revenue streams. Um, we're coming in potentially, we're potentially lose $11 million for our rental tax. We have those that are gates trying to take our $14 million in food tax. That's 25 million. We just got a quick briefing tonight that potentially the shortfall in the state budget. That's potentially. So I'm asking for friends of the cities and towns. We need your help. When the legislators want to take away our revenue stream, which help your organization, you need to help us. You need to help us be there. You need to help speak on our behalf and tell them, look, these guys are doing their job, which you just mentioned tonight. If I don't have a revenue stream coming in, some of those police officers may be deployed somewhere else or may not be able to get to your place in time to do some of the good things we want them to do, or may not be patrolling. So I'm asking you, as friends of the cities and towns, you're relying on us. Help, can we rely on you? Can we go to our government affairs person and ask for your support at the right time, at the right area, so that you could weigh in and say, this is important to us, it's important to the city, it's a good partnership. So I threw that on the table, and hopefully you take it back to your board and discuss it, and hopefully you come back with a positive answer, because we need your help. The legislators are coming after the cities and towns, and I'm not, for some reason, it's not just here in Arizona, by the way, it's nationwide. So we need your help. So we got to have friends of the city and towns. Thank you.
That was the longest short question I've ever heard.
There wasn't even a question.
He beat me. He beat
It was
Mayor.
a
Put it on the
question.
record. He's beat me.
You know, we ought to have an award that we can pass around for what's the word? I don't know. All right.
Mayor.
Council, anything else before we go to, we have many unscheduled speakers
Yep.
yet to come here tonight.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor,
Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you for the discussion. And as Councilmember Harris said, you know, we're committed to helping. And I can tell you this, that this is the last council that will look at public safety as the first thing we cut from a budget if we do get budget cuts from the state. That's like, it's not even on the list. So I hear what you're saying, Vice Mayor, for sure. The question I had for you was, what is something that you're seeing as a best practice from an ordinance perspective that we can put into place to help you? Or how can we lobby the state for more teeth in our laws to make sure that these things don't happen that are happening in California?
Mr. Mayor and Councilman Stewart, we really have good laws right now. We are looking to make some adjustments on some existing law that. So we have a task force underneath the Attorney General's office, and it's functioning very well. But there was some restrictions on who had to be part of that. And because of staffing with local law enforcement, that's really hard to do. So we're going to make some adjustments there. We're also looking at making some adjustments on the actual shoplifting laws, because sometimes judges plead things, or our prosecutors or defense attorneys can plead things down to where it's actually a shoplift, and it doesn't apply, what am I trying to say? When they've committed and then they go into incarceration, and when they come out, they just start to recommitting again. So we're looking to make some changes there. That would be great. But really, from an ordinance level, you guys have been great, and we are really not looking at city courts as much, because that's really more on this small level shoplifting. So our county attorneys and our prosecutors are doing a really good job. Really, it's on us. We really need to make some inroads with judges and make sure that they understand. We had a really big case this year that they had arrested like 31 individuals, 31 individuals in one night. And they were putting skimmer devices on top of the existing, like when you put your credit card in, and they were so sophisticated and so good that no one could tell the difference. So they were stealing EBT information. So they're stealing EBT, which of the most needy people in the nation. And that those at that time, and I think that they've made some changes to this, but at that time you couldn't get those benefits back. So some of the worst things, and they're selling baby formula right at the top of the crisis. But anyway, they do this huge sweep. They arrest 31 people. They put them in jail. They set a bail, which is a cash bail, which is harder to do. They were bailed out in 30 minutes, which is millions and millions of dollars. So it just shows you the sophistication of these groups. This is not somebody with, a few friends on the street that they can talk them into going and stealing some Lego sets. This is sophisticated. And we're lucky enough to have people like Brian that work on this and that can engage with our local law enforcement like the Chandler PD, and that we have prosecutors that are now designated, and we really are getting some momentum to make a change. We're really grateful.
And just real quick follow-up, Mayor, love to get that list of judges that are not doing the right thing, because there is a mechanism for moving them on, whether it's JP or judges that we vote for them. And so if they're not doing their jobs effectively to keep our small businesses thriving, then we should do that. But thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ellis. Oh, you didn't even, I'm sorry. I thought you were indicating.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Council, as I mentioned, we have a number of speaker cards, and honestly, you all been here the entire time, and I'm not going to cut your time. We will listen to you, what you've got to say, and but you will have 3 minutes. I'm not giving you 10 minutes. First up, we have a group of our Roy Burchett, our Arizona Rangers, that would like to make a presentation. And I think I told you we'd be ready for you about an hour and a half ago, so I clearly misjudged tonight.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you very much for your time. I will definitely do this in less than 3 minutes.
Can you state your name and address?
Certainly. Ron Burchett, Burchett, 9923 East Arrowvale Drive, Sun Lakes, Arizona 85248.
Thank you.
Thank you. I represent an organization called the Arizona Rangers. We are an all-volunteer law enforcement auxiliary, obviously in the state of Arizona, with about 550 members. For the last few years, we've worked closely with Chandler PD on various Chandler local events like the Ostrich Festival and the upcoming marathon you have this Sunday. I'm just here tonight to thank Chief Duggan for his continued support for our partnership over the last few years, and to wish him well in his future endeavors. And I'd like to give him a small presentation on our behalf. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So, if you can. I'm not sure you've ever got one of those.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Incredible partnership and volunteering, just like you volunteered your 3 hours tonight.
Sorry, they're yours.
So thank you for that. But you've been an incredible partner, and we've been relying on you and all the Rangers. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
And Council, this again is unscheduled public appearance, meaning we cannot engage, ask questions, or anything further. City Manager, a number of these next ones have to do, I believe, with the library, or so indicated. Just for Council, just to remind us, can you please tell us the process of if someone has a concern with books, what does that look like and how can they best take their concerns?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, briefly, members of the council, the city council long ago empowered the library board to govern the acquisition of materials. And we do have a process known as the reconsideration process. The form to request a reconsideration is actually on the Chandler Library's website. It's all a digital form now, so it's very easy to access. And if there is anyone who is concerned or wants a review of any material of any type that's in the library, there is a process to do that. They just simply need to fill out the form. The initial step is that will be reviewed by a panel of 3 librarians. They'll render a response to the individual. If that individual is not satisfied with the response, they have the right to a hearing before the library board, and that is where the decision is made.
Okay, thank you. If I could, as I call you up, if you could, again, please state your name and address, and you will have up to 3 minutes to share your thoughts or what you want to talk about. Again, this first one, I'm not sure. I think you were connected with the libraries, but I guess we'll see. Sasha Rebron, you want to please come up and state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Good to see you again.
Good evening. My name is Sasha Rebron. I live 9842 East Thatcher Avenue, Mesa, Arizona. And I'm a sophomore at Basis Mesa. I was recently crowned Miss Juneteenth of 2023. And I'm here today to kind of offer my perspective as a student on the importance of making books available to everyone. Because as you've seen in the media, this has been kind of talked about, and there's been discussion of limiting the books which students have access to. So I came here today to kind of offer my perspective, as this is a topic that might be brought to you guys in the future. So I'll start off with this. Books are the keys to understanding, learning, and growing. They transport us to different worlds, they broaden our horizons, and foster empathy and understanding. They're not just ink on pages, they're gateways to knowledge. But let's remember that this access should never be hindered. So, regardless of our background or circumstances, we all deserve the right to explore these worlds, expand our minds, and have the same opportunities. So, in conclusion, I'm encouraging everyone here, when it's time to make decisions about the access to books or anything in that nature, understand that books are vital to our society, and it is all of our responsibility to ensure that access to books should not be hindered in any form or way. So, by doing this, we can ensure that the path to knowledge remains open for all, because when we make books accessible, we make a brighter, more equitable future for everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sarah Lipich. Again, apologize for how I pronounced your name. Again, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes to share your thoughts.
Mayor, Council, thank you. My name is Sarah Lipich. I live at 2609 North Yucca Street, Chandler, Arizona. I'm a longtime Chandler resident and would like to voice my strong support for the Chandler Public Library. Libraries across the country are under attack by a small but vocal group of people who wish to restrict intellectual freedom and voice their own views upon all families. I strongly oppose the idea that the government should dictate what anyone is allowed to read or think. Censorship in any form is a slippery slope and is in direct conflict with the principles of democracy. As a troubled tween and teen, I felt alone and that life was hopeless. I stumbled upon books in my hometown library that addressed difficult topics. They talked about things no one talked about, things my parents didn't know how to talk to me about. They contained characters that thought and felt like I did. Those books showed me I was not alone in the world. They saved my life. Libraries have a responsibility to provide information for a wide variety of users and to provide inclusive environments and resources to serve the entire community fairly and equitably. Library staff are trained specialists who understand that there are many book options, and they expertly assist in finding the right fit for each family. Ultimately, what a child borrows from the library is between the parent and child. Parents who believe that their child has not reached a level of maturity to choose their own books should be right by their side helping them. If parents find themselves surprised or upset about a book their child chose, they should aim to be more present in their own family to gain an understanding of their child and that choice. Every parent has the right and responsibility to make decisions about what materials are suitable for their own family, but they do not have the right to make decisions about mine. It is not the role of any citizen or government entity to judge or police what members of the community read or think. The City of Chandler's website states that we strive to be a safe, diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. The library is at the heart of that goal. Librarians should be allowed to follow their established guidelines to build book collections that reflect the whole community. Thank you for keeping the library a free and inclusive place for everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker card is from Tamara Norwood. Again, welcome. You please state your name and address for the record, and you have up to 3 minutes to share your thoughts.
Hi, my name is Tamara Norwood. I live at 752 East Buena Vista Drive, Chandler 85249. I'm 20-year resident of Chandler, and I'm here because I want to express my support for the current collection policy of the Chandler Public Libraries. I'm aware that recently there have been some challenges to that policy by special interest groups that are advocates for censorship. And what I'd like to share with the council this evening is not too long ago, I was the library manager in the city of Maricopa, and I was fortunate enough to be invited to a meeting in which Councilmember Vincent Manfredi was asked to come and meet with a group, another special agency that was advocating censorship. They wanted absolutely no materials in the library at that time that had any reference to homosexuality in them. And Councilmember Manfredi's response to them was, look, I can guarantee that I can go in this community and find 50 people who would say that the Constitution is racist and therefore it should not be available to be accessed in any government-funded entities, including libraries. And his response to them at the end of the conversation was, when does censorship end? And I would ask you to consider that if you are approached by these groups, specifically one called Moms for Liberty, that you would keep in mind that the censorship they're advocating, well, it's just the tip of the iceberg, right? When does censorship end? My final comment that I'd like to share with you is a statement from President Dwight D. Eisenhower in response to censorship. Don't join the book burners. Don't think you're going to conceal faults by concealing evidence that they ever existed. Don't be afraid to go to the library and read every book. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dr. William Crawford. Dr. Crawford, you know the drill.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, for giving me a few minutes. Thank you, Council, for listening to me for just a few minutes. William Crawford, 1252 North McKinney Avenue, Chandler, Arizona, 85226. Mayor and Council, it's been a long evening. The librarians have already spoke very eloquently, much better than I could. I would just remind you of this. You have been committed to inclusion in the city of Chandler. Don't deviate from that. Leaders in this community stood strong about inclusion, diversity, and equity years ago. Stay the course. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Crawford. Our next speaker is Carmen Laredo. Carmen, again, you have 3 minutes. State your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Carmen Laredo, 1845 West Muscat Way, Chandler 85286. And I would like to add my comments regarding the library and the availability of the library. I've lived in Chandler for 20 years. One of the first things I did when I moved here was get a library card. And since then, my family and I have enjoyed using the library. We've probably been through all the children's books at the downtown library. We frequent the Spanish section, DVDs. We use it for research. We enjoy the culture passes. We are big library users. We have always felt that the Chandler Library content is current and represents not just our interests, but also the interests of our community, our diverse community of Chandler. And the librarians who curate our materials do not work in a vacuum. They are aware of current events. They bring us the most up-to-date research available, current events, and they live among us, so they're part of us as well. When my daughter was young, she made some selections that maybe I was a little uncomfortable with, but rather than making her return them to the shelves, we discussed them. And as a parent preparing my daughter for adulthood, that was my responsibility. And so I don't think I expect the responsibility, the library and the librarians to do that for me. That is for me to do. As a taxpayer who helps fund the Chandler libraries, I feel like it should be I feel like I should not be limited to what materials are available to us. That is something that our librarians should take care of. One of the main tenets of our American way of life is our right to personal freedoms. And I think by definition, um, limiting our book options is kind of un-American. And if you don't like a topic, don't borrow the book, to each his own. And I don't expect the library to take care of worrying about what my child reads. So I would ask the council to please ensure that our library materials remain diverse as our city is, and let our very talented librarians do their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Michelle Estrada. Michelle Estrada, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Michelle Estrada. I live at 464 North Halsted Court, Chandler, AZ. I've lived here my whole life, and as a child, I was homeschooled, so I was able to go to the public library all the time, and I love the Chandler Public Library. And I actually use it as an example in lots of my architectural work that I do now. So to me, it's a really massive influence, and part of that big influence that it made in my life was the availability of different forms of media. Through the different, they had the availability of renting CDs, movies, DVDs, leap pads, if you guys remember those, and all kinds of really great stuff that was able to help expand my young mind. And I want to first begin this by saying that movement should not be restricted in public spaces. And those who try to police what can and cannot occur in places such as a public library are unfortunately feeling entitled to the liberty of others. Libraries are not for the small group who protests against intellectual freedom. It is for the diverse constituents of Chandler. Librarians have a job, and they should be free to fulfill that without critique from this portion of the population that do not carry the responsibility of defending the people of Chandler. And I want to remind you guys that that is, of course, part of your responsibility. And I'm very glad to see a cast of folks up here who I believe would advocate for that intellectual freedom from the time we're 5 years old, until we're 105 years old. And I just want to say that I agree with everything that's been said up here so far, and I'm really glad that people have come up here today to speak on this issue. And that's it. So thank you.
Thank you. We are a cast of folks. Not been called that before. Our next speaker, Reverend Susan Oglesby Dunnigan. Welcome back. Again, state your name and address. You have up to 3 minutes to speak.
I'm not going to sing. Maybe next time I come to do the prayer for y'all. I'm Reverend Sarah Oglesby Dunnigan, she, her. I am the senior minister at Chandler, at Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation here in Chandler, 6400 West Del Rio. I'm here with members of my congregation that I serve here in Chandler. They can give a little wave. Amen, amen, amen to everything that folks have already said. I just want to say that for me, libraries and library staff are some of the most important resources that we have in our communities. And for me, they're also it's a sacred space and a sacred job. Not just the spaces that we worship in, but also the places that we learn and grow in are very important to how we create a community. And I hate to hear of the possibility that librarians are facing harassment or protest over the curation of LGBTQ themed materials And perhaps someday folks, if they get away with that, will come up with other things they want them to get rid of. So we need to really guard against that. Um, my husband is a language arts and social studies teacher, and both my parents taught high school and college English classes. So books, learning, and reading have been really important to us, and they're also important to my faith community. So we really believe that no one group should ever have the power to decide for the rest of us what we can read and learn. And we're a community of diverse folks, as everyone has said already, and we should be allowed to read books and find other materials that reflect our diversity, our history, and our values. So there are books that I will probably never read, and I support your right to choose not to read or watch or listen to what I do. Just because someone doesn't agree with it or like it doesn't make it inappropriate or harmful for the rest of us. It's a deeply held American value that stems from our commitment to reason and learning and accessibility of these for all. So I'm proud to serve in a community with a non-discrimination ordinance that protects us from persecution based on our identities and our personal characteristics. And I thank you for your leadership in making it so. And I urge leaders to set clear boundaries to protect our public servants and uphold their stewardship of a precious community resource, in this case, library materials. History, culture, values, and knowledge, no one group gets to decide what is or is not curated and for whose benefit. And hate and persecution are not values we can afford to cater to. So thanks for your commitment to this community and in all of its diversity. And thanks to everyone who's spoken.
Thank you. Next speaker is Hayden Gwynn, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, my name is Hayden Nguyen. I'm from 200 West Jasper Drive, 85233 Gilbert, Arizona, and I'm come to speak about the content of our library books. Some people have and may come here and complain or fearmonger about the types of books that are available to the community in our public libraries. And this small yet vocal group of people make this issue an issue of parental rights. They try to tell you that it is their right to pick and choose the curriculum for all people and for all students. They would rather our children hide from the difficult conversations and even hide from mentions of LGBTQIA and other marginalized people. Now, I could tell you, as someone who's been in the public school system their entire life, that banning books does nothing to protect our children. But what it does do is further hurt and marginalize our minority students even further. And for all of us in this room, it is important to remember that this city council and these elected people serve a very diverse community. Everybody, and especially our LGBTQ youth who are facing an ongoing mental health crisis, deserve to be represented in the books we read. So I would like to ask the council that they please trust everyone, and especially our students, that they have the ability to make decisions about what they read. And this is an issue to me about democracy and the idea that people deserve the right to see themselves reflected in the books that they read growing up. Just one more thing is that I found out recently that Chandler has some of the best schools in Arizona, but in America as well. And I just want to say that an effort to ban books or to restrict the information that the public has is an attempt to disrupt this excellent education that students receive in Chandler and is against everyone's best interest. Thank you.
Thank you. My next card, and I apologize, I'm having a hard time reading your writing, but is first name Dawn? Is there someone here, Dawn? All right. We did. Good job, Vice Mayor. So please state your name and address and you have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Dawn. I use they, she pronouns. I live on 6201 West Park Avenue, Chandler 85226, and I am a senior at Hamilton High School. When I was in 6th grade, I picked up a copy of Aristotle and Dante Discovered the Secrets of the Universe. This book was highly awarded, very well written, and appropriate for my age. It was also a frequently challenged book, just because the main character happened to be gay. This book changed my life. It reassured me that LGBTQ inclusion was not a radical concept. It is basic care and empathy for others. It let me know that my identity as an LGBTQ teen was normal and worthy of love. Recently, our Chandler libraries have faced challenges from an extreme view. Librarians have been repeatedly harassed over books that make sure that all students are seen and represented. These individuals seek to ban books, close down library programs, and disrupt learning activities. This vocal minority, as you have seen today, does not represent our community. My school is next to the library. It is a safe space for students to learn, hang out, and seek community. This is a space for us that this extreme view seeks to make smaller and smaller. Students and their parents should be able to be trusted to make decisions, and the council should stand up for their right to agency. These outspoken people who seek to marginalize LGBTQ youth and other minorities and their representation in libraries violate this very council's NDO, and I urge you to reaffirm your commitment and protect LGBTQ young people and their stories. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jacqueline Cardin? Jacqueline lives on Flintlock Way. It's been a long night. We understand, Jacqueline. Our next speaker is Eduarda Schroeder. Eduarda, please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Eduarda Schroeder, 3480 West Ross Drive in Chandler, Arizona. I am one of the founders of Chandler Pride. I am speaking in favor of libraries with many diverse books. With an age-appropriate context, reading banned books can be beneficial for several reasons. It broadens perspectives, it encourages critical thinking, brings cultural and historical awareness, it fosters freedom of expression, a fundamental human right, allows for intellectual exploration, it sparks dialogue. My children and I have enjoyed the Chandler libraries for over 20 years. I couldn't wait. I mean, I lived near Sunset Library, and I was just watching it be built, and it was so exciting, and I just couldn't wait to get in there. And having a diversity of books available encouraged us to keep going back. Parents have the right to guide their children's reading, but parents should not be making decisions for other parents' children's. Specifically, a small group of parents should not dictate what books other people's children are allowed to read. I want the library board to know that my family and Chandler Pride support diversity in their catalog. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I have 2 comment cards. I will read them just to be consistent. The first is from Sanaya Reveron. Apologize again if I've mispronounced your name. On the subject of banning books, I believe students shall have the liberty to lead without restrictions. Reading is very powerful, and restricting the knowledge students intake takes away that.
Hey, the lights.
Wow. Nobody applauded for me. All right, the last speaker card by Barbara Face. I support the freedom of libraries to have a diversity and variety of books available for patrons. I oppose banning or limiting books by people who are afraid of diversity. They can have their opinion, but should keep their hands off books. All right, Council, that concludes our unscheduled public appearances. Is that still correct, City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor.
Very good. Next, we have current events. I've got 4 I would like to share with you. For our City Day is Saturday, October 21st at the Colonia Coronita neighborhood. More than 1,000 volunteers will work together on various home improvement projects in the neighborhood. There's also going to be a park party and a job fair in that area close to Humphrey Elementary School. For more information, visit forOurCityChandler.org. Secondly, Halloween Spooktaculars, Friday, October 27th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. in downtown Chandler at Dr. A.J. Chandler Park Stage. The event is free with games, costume parade, and trunk or treat stations handing out goodies. Visit chandleraz.gov/spooktacular. Thirdly, Arbor Day is Saturday, November 4th at Chandler Nature Center. There will be tree planting demonstrations, and Chandler households can pick up a free 5-gallon tree. Looking forward to picking up a desert willow tree and putting it in my front yard. How cool is that? In fact, if you want to help me, show up at my house November 7th on my birthday. Bring your wheelbarrow and shovel. We're having a rock and tree party. More information on the first part, not the second. Visit chandleraz.gov, Arbor Day. And lastly, Council, just tonight, Chandler made the top 5 of the most ready for the future cities in the nation. So it seems to fit the conversations that we're having for finances and reserves and looking forward in the decisions that we make. So congratulations, Council and staff. Councilmember Encinas.
I'll keep it very short. I don't have any official announcements, but I'll be seeing you guys this weekend at Fort Worth City, as well as the mental health symposium that's going to be taking place here in the chamber. So we'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing tonight for me.
Vice Mayor.
Happy Veterans Day to all those veterans out there. And in fact, we have a couple events coming up next week or so. Friday, November 3rd from 8:30 to 10:30 in the downtown Chandler, downtown Chandler Community Center. Veterans, active duty, retired military service members are invited to enjoy a free breakfast and haircuts. Now, that's one of the things I do not miss about the military's haircuts, but we're still giving free ones out to you. And so come on down, enjoy the morning fellowship. Registration is required. Go to visit chandleraz.gov/events. And finally, Veterans Day is Saturday, November 11th. Join us from 4:30 to 8 o'clock at the Field of Honor, Veterans Oasis Park. And we'll have a good time there as well. Again, visit chandleraz.gov/events and have a great evening.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, if you haven't been to the Veterans Day celebration out at Veterans Oasis Park, it is moving, and it is something you should definitely attend with the new display that we have out there. Hey, it is important that we recognize the tragedy that's happening overseas. And, I don't know how we do that, what the right thing to say is, but I know that it's weighing on everybody's heart. And it's something that when I look out in the audience, I can see we're a community that communicates, and we have differences, and we have things that we struggle with. I'm just grateful for this nation and the fact that we do have a place like this where we can share our differences and we can come to resolution, and I'm grateful. I want to kind of transition into a celebration, which is kind of somber, but I want to on the 4th of November from 11 to 3 at the downtown AJ Chandler stage, we will be celebrating Diwali, the Festival of Lights. And I just got introduced to Diwali about 3 years ago, and it is the best. If you haven't been part of this celebration that's generally held with our Indian community, where we celebrate the victory of light over darkness, and the food is unbelievable. So I recommend that you get out there on Saturday, and then of course go D-backs. I won't ruin it if anybody taped it, but it is go D-backs. No. You never know. You never know. And go Air.
And Council, I invite you to join me on stage for the opening greeting. And of course, you get to participate in a Bali dance too. So you'll see us
here we go.
Twitch and move erratically on stage, and others will call it dancing. Councilmember Harris.
I'm ready to break dance. That's what I'm gonna be doing on the stage. So, anyways, now you know what? Tonight has been government at work, and I'm really just proud to hear about the NDO. Something that I was passionate about to lead in the council was to vote on it and get us a unanimous vote. So I was really proud to hear about the NDO multiple times tonight. So it just lets me know that we are in the right vein. We are moving forward as a community that believe in diversity and embraces diversity, and want to see everyone working together to move the city of Chandler forward. And that's what it's all about. So I was smiling and happy and things like that, because this is what it's all about. us working together. So I'll say my announcement because I sure missed my last event I was supposed to have been at about an hour and 30 minutes ago, but it's all good. I missed it now. But serving the people is important. So this Saturday, happy Veterans Day to Vice Mayor. We both serve both our veterans. This Saturday, October 21st, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Mental Health Symposium. Councilmember Cena has already announced it, but I want to reiterate it. Please come out from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be right here in the council chamber, so make sure you do that. And we will have experts here to talk about various topics and things of that nature. So go to chandleraz.gov/events to register. Then I would like you to join myself as well as Mayor and some of my other colleagues for the mental health walk that's going to be taking place next Saturday, October 28th from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. right across the way at the new square. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be great. There's a registration there, but we want you to come out. It's free for the community, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. We have various speakers that's going to be there, but more importantly, solidarity, mental health. You guys need to come out. Without you, there's no walk. So I need you to come out and walk so we can have a walk. So make sure you guys come out. We have over 400 some people registered. It's going to be a really good walk, and I'm excited. And now I'm ready to go home. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Harris, is there going to be coffee and donuts for us?
You know what? For you, yes, there will be coffee and donuts for everybody. You get a coffee donut. You get a coffee and a donut.
Councilmember Poston.
All right, hang in there with us for just one more minute because I think this is important and it's relevant. I thought Councilmember Harris was setting me up a little bit here to move right into it. But Terry Kimball, the president of the Chandler Chamber, is in the audience tonight. Would you stand up, Terry? Just, she's right over there. Just give us a little wave. You know, I wanted to recognize an award that she won. She was honored last Friday by One Community. She's the president of our Chandler Chamber. She received a Local Heroes Award. It was during their Spotlight on Success event. And this was a special award because it was their 10-year anniversary of the Unity Pledge. And I don't know how many people in this room know this, but Terry with the Chandler Chamber brought the non-discrimination ordinance to her Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee all the way back in 2017 and began laying the foundation for the city to begin taking a look at this issue. She always has the pulse on what businesses are doing, and businesses so often lead the way on items like this. They understand that it's about the best person, and to be inclusive is to create a wonderful workplace. And so I just wanted to recognize her for getting this much deserved award, personally thank her for that work that she did at the chamber. While I was board chair of the chamber during some of that time and appreciated her leadership, this award is well deserved, and I hope you'll join me in a round of applause for her.
City Manager.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you all for sticking with us. That concludes our council meeting.